Chapter 2589. Money might not be able to solve all problems, but it could definitely solve most of them. Enchanting didn't have to worry about money at all now. Chen Zhao had also compensated her with all sorts of bonuses for her previous investments. It was even more than what she had invested in the past. As a result, her family thought that the Chinese cartoon studio she had invested in had finally paid off. "Boss, if we start the holiday tomorrow, it'll be too long until January 15th. No company in the industry will give such a long holiday in 20 days. Although the market for Chinese cartoons wasn't very popular, they didn't have much time. Time was very tight for those who worked on cartoons. A skilled animation production team would have about 50 to 100 people, and it would take them about 10 days to produce a 20-minute episode of an animation. Moreover, it was hard to guarantee the duration. Sometimes, more time was needed. Therefore, most cartoons in the world would only be broadcasted after at least one season had been produced. It wasn't like many TV dramas, which could be filmed while it was being broadcasted. There were many scenes in cartoons. Perhaps the manuscript had the same feeling, but when it was made into a scene, it didn't have the feeling one imagined. This meant that the scene had to be remade. It could even be said that making cartoons was more complicated than filming movies. "Boss, our animation team isn't full yet. If we start the holiday now, our production will be delayed longer and we'll need to spend more money." Enchanting regretted it as soon as she said it. She had clearly forgotten about Chen Zhao's favorite thing to do, spending money. "Then it's decided." Before Enchanting could stop him, he had already made his decision. "Oh, everyone has to attend the party in 15 days. It's rare for me to come back, so I don't want anyone to be absent." "Okay, boss," Enchanting replied helplessly. Enchanting hung up and went to her old classmate's office. Her old classmate was Li Yuka, who had become the general manager of the company through her introduction. Although Li Yuka was her boss in name, there was actually no difference between them. After all, Li Yuka had been introduced to the company by Enchanting. "Enchanting, what's up?" Li Yuka asked, pushing up his glasses. "Old Li, we're the same age. If you dare to call me Old Li today, I'll call you Auntie Zhang tomorrow." "Li Yuka, that's enough." "Alright, what's up?" "I really don't know what's wrong with our boss. He seems to enjoy spending money. Now that the company has just been established, he doesn't think about the company's development plan. He only thinks about spending money. I even suspect that he's trying to launder money. I've seen the company's financial statements and accounts, as well as the accounts transferred to the company. They're all clean. There's no problem." Li Yuka smiled and said, "And do you know how to launder money? Money laundering will not be distributed to your accounts. Generally, money laundering will enter the company's accounts, and then through a shell company, contact their fake business, and then transfer the money to the shell company's account. In this way, the money will be laundered. Now, except for finance, all the other businesses are handled by you and me. Even if people want to launder money, they will look for you. I'm sick. I'd rather the boss be sick. He gives his employees red packets every few days. It's giving me goosebumps." Enchanting said with a wry smile, "The boss called me again just now. He said that it's the Spring Festival. He gave the employees a long holiday and a red packet for the Spring Festival. Is our boss that rich?" Li Yuka asked, confused. He had only joined the company after all the employees had gone on vacation. Therefore, he was still very unfamiliar with Chen Zhao. Therefore, he still had some doubts about his boss's wealth. "I really don't know how much money he has, but we went out to sea once. At that time, he used his private yacht, a super yacht worth at least 500 million renminbi. In addition, we spent $3 to $4 million for a week abroad. If you haven't interacted with him, you won't be able to understand. Seeing him spend money gives me a feeling of fear. Zhang Ting paused for a moment, then said, in addition, he has a lot of connections. He knows the richest man in Central Asia, Gunbai Bifla, and he also knows top Hollywood directors. In addition, I think his connections in China are not weak. A person's wealth did not mean anything. But a rich person with connections could almost do whatever he wanted. Zhang Ting was actually reminding Li Yuke in a subtle way. She had graduated from a financial management major. There were so many subjects in the world, but those who graduated from a financial management major had the highest crime rate. Why was that? Because people in financial management controlled other people's fates. Moreover, in some companies without proper supervision, they could very well become the local tyrants of the company. Without supervision, they would lose their restraints. Therefore, they would be able to do whatever they wanted. Although Zhang Ting trusted Li Yuke, she still had to be careful. After all, she still had deep feelings for this newly established company and had high hopes for the future. In the Chinese comics industry, one needed to throw money at it. As for her usual worries, they were the worries of happiness. Therefore, although she complained all day, she was actually secretly happy. For example, the animation companies under large companies. Even if they had a huge corporation behind them. But their pockets were still tight. No matter how big their parent company was, they could not invest all their money in their subsidiaries. But Chen Zhao's investment seemed to have no limit. Darling, are you going to China after Chinese New Year? Sure, Fei Lai answered without turning her head. Do you want to go yourself or because of me? I want to go myself, but more importantly, it's because you want to go back. Papa, I want to go too. Little Jerlin suddenly ran to Chen Zhao's side and jumped into his arms. I. Little Larissa also ran over. Little Larissa was already very good at running. But she was only at the level of other children her age. She could not compare to Jerlin at all. Jerlin could already fly when she was 3 months old. Little Larissa was a far cry from little Jerlin in sports. Chen Zhao hesitated. He had only planned to go back with Fei Lai. Then, he would leave the kid at home. Didira also walked over. Uncle, I want to go to China too. Why do you want to go? I want to see what China's most prosperous spiritual world is like. 9 Heavens Divine Emperor. Chapter 2590. DDRA and the others were also psychics. They were imperceptibly influenced by many rumors and stories. It was all about the supernatural world of Huaxia. But that place was too far away. Even though they were spiritualists, it was hard for them to come into contact with it. Now, they finally had the chance to let this powerful spiritualist from China lead the way. How could they give up this opportunity? Actually, Chen Zhao was quite curious too. The other children also showed strong curiosity. Alright, then let's go to Huaxia together this time. After thinking for a while, Chen Zhao finally decided to bring the whole family to China. They were all his family, so going to Huaxia could also be considered as returning home. There was no reason for them to follow him back. Now, Chen Zhao's family celebrated Christmas and Spring Festival. In the past 2 days, Chen Zhao had been preparing for the Lunar New Year. All the fireworks and firecrackers were ready. Then, he went to his high school classmate Li Qiong's shop to buy it. It really wasn't easy to buy this thing outside. And because he bought quite a lot of them, we still need to do some registration. Chen Zhao and Li Qiong did not contact each other often. However, the connection was not completely severed. Li Qiong didn't know that Chen Zhao and her sister were enemies. Chen Zhao and Li Mu seemed to have a tacit understanding. They never mentioned this to Li Qiong. Chen Zhao knew that Li Qiong had been fishing for a rich husband. She seemed to be engaged to a Chinese man recently. Based on Li Qiong's experience, this Chinese fiancé probably had some family background. Otherwise, Li Qiong would not have agreed so easily. Chen Zhao didn't dislike this kind of purposeful feeling. Everyone has their own choices. Moreover, Chen Zhao wasn't a moral pacesetter. Portia could feel the change in Chen Zhao's mood these days. She knew that the most important festival for the Chinese, the Spring Festival, was in 2 days. Wasn't it just a festival? Was there a need to be so excited and expectant? The weather in Los Angeles had begun to warm up. The temperature had returned to the 20s during the day. The most obvious change was that the children could already play in the water in their swimsuits. Portia glanced at Chen Zhao, who was lying on the chair with his upper body bare. Chen Zhao hummed. He seemed to be in a good mood. "Boss, do you want some fruit?" "Wash 2 grapes for me," Chen Zhao said. "Boss, are you going to China after the Spring Festival?" "Yes." "Then can you take me to Huaxia as well? You borrowed money from loan sharks here. Do you need to take refuge in China?" Portia glared at Chen Zhao. He was her biggest creditor. She owed Chen Zhao so much that she couldn't even count it, and it was only getting more and more. It couldn't be helped. She couldn't control her desire to shop. Every time, he would suddenly wake up after shopping. But it was already too late. And she basically maxed out her credit card every month. At the end of every month, she had to freeload off Chen Zhao for food and drinks. Every time she thought of this, Portia felt like crying. She had a high-paying job, even higher than most people in the world, but why was she unable to make ends meet every month? "I just want to see Huaxia." Chen Zhao had planned to take Portia with him. After all, there were so many children at home. He and Fei Lai couldn't take care of them all. Just then, Chen Zhao called. "Hello, Lady Daly Moore." "What's up?" "Chen, do you have time?" Chen Zhao rubbed his chin. "What's up?" "Just say it." "I have a friend's child. Something happened. I hope you can take a look. Can't Navot Singer solve it?" Chen Zhao knew about Navot's and Daly Moore's relationship. Navot Singer was both Daly Moore's teacher and friend. Moreover, Navot's had a huge reserve of magical knowledge. If it was a problem that even Navot Singer couldn't solve, Chen Zhao might not be able to either. "Chen, what we need this time is powerful combat power," Daly Moore said helplessly. "What's the exact situation?" "You better come personally," Daly Moore said helplessly. "It's a bit complicated." "Okay." Chen Zhao thought about it. Daly Moore was Stephen's daughter, after all. He had to give her face. Then, Chen Zhao drove to the address Daly Moore provided. It was a luxurious mansion near the coastline in Beverly Hills. It was a mansion that wasn't even a quarter of Mirror Lake Manor's size. It was even more expensive than Mirror Lake Manor. Rasfa had recommended Chen Zhao to buy some high-quality mansions in Beverly Hills for investment. However, after hearing the price, Chen Zhao gave up on the idea. If he built a mansion the size of Mirror Lake Manor in Beverly Hills, he could build a palace in a remote place with the money. For example, a private mansion in Beverly Hills had been sold last year. It was sold for a sky-high price of $1.9 billion. It wasn't that Chen Zhao couldn't afford it. More importantly, he didn't think it was worth it. In particular, he often calculated the exchange rate between dollars and RMB. Chen Zhao called Daly Moore at the door and the door opened automatically. Chen Zhao stopped the car and saw Daly Moore, Navot's Singer, and a young couple standing at the door. Everyone had a worried expression on their faces. Navot Singer's arm was still in a sling and wrapped in gauze. She seemed to be injured. Tell me, Chen Zhao said. What's the exact situation? The young couple looked at Chen Zhao. They seemed to be wary and suspicious of him. Olette. Daily Moore looked at the young man. The young man thought for a moment. After exchanging glances with his wife, he mentally prepared himself and said, "My son seems to have become a demon." A demon? Chen Zhao frowned. Do you or your ancestors have any special bloodlines? Or did they display extraordinary abilities in one generation? No. Olette shook his head and looked at his wife. No. At least, I haven't heard of any of my ancestors with special abilities. Did they not know or not? Chen Zhao was suspicious. Special bloodlines wouldn't suddenly appear. In the spiritual world, the awakened were divided into wizards and awakened with special bloodlines. For example, Gaia was a special bloodline. Gaia didn't suddenly have a special bloodline. Instead, her ancestors definitely had dragon bloodline. So, your child suddenly became a demon? Chen Zhao asked. Is that what you mean? My child isn't a demon. He's my child, not a demon, the young woman said agitatedly. 9 Heavens God King. Chapter 2591. No one would admit that their child was a demon. Chen Zhao could understand it as a parent's desire to protect their child. After all, Chen Zhao was a father too. However, this was definitely not the time to talk about love. You guys didn't call me here to talk about parenting, right? It's inside, Dahlia said. When Chen Zhao entered the house, he didn't feel anyone else's presence. Chen Zhao turned around and saw that the young couple, Daily Moore, and Nawat Singh had followed them in. Where are they? The young couple gulped. The young woman took out a bronze key. The bronze key was clearly quite old. It was mottled with rust, but one could still tell that it was exquisitely made. After all, even in modern times, it wasn't easy to carve complicated patterns on a bronze key that was less than 2 millimeters in diameter. The young woman brought Chen Zhao to the basement. There was another door in the basement. Chen Zhao frowned. Chen Zhao realized that his little world seemed to be blocked by this door. Even the entire wall was blocked by something. The young woman walked to the door with the bronze key. Then she looked back at Chen Zhao. Do you really want to open it? Clearly, the woman was terrified by her son. Open it, Chen Zhao said. Of course, if you need, you can use this key. The young woman finally mustered her courage and opened the door. Instantly, the aura from hell spread out. It was a deep space. Even if the door was opened, Chen Zhao's little world couldn't expand inside. I didn't expect there to be such a big space down here. Your interests are really unique. Chen Zhao glanced at the young couple. We didn't build it, Olette said. We just bought it 2 weeks ago. Oh. It's not cheap, right? In fact, the price of this villa is 20% lower than the normal price, and the environment and location are excellent. The bank is eager to sell this property, so they even provided us with a low-interest loan. We thought that we were lucky, but now it seems that the bank also realized that there was something wrong with this villa, so they sold it to us at the lowest price. Didn't you investigate before buying it? Yes, Olette said. Olette said, the owner of this house was accused of child abduction and murder. At least 6 children went missing here, but only the body of 1 child was found. At this point, Olette's expression was very unnatural. However, the police found 6 children's hair and some blood in this house. What about the original owner of this villa? The death penalty, and a long-abandoned poison was used as a means of execution, Dahlia said. In the past, the United States used cyanide to execute prisoners on death row. This was a highly toxic substance, not the kind that would cause instant death. Only 0.06 grams was needed to cause severe poisoning symptoms. Those who were poisoned could be said to have been tortured to the extreme, dying in a drug reaction that lasted for several hours. Later, the death penalty was abolished because it was too cruel. Is that necessary? Chen Zhao frowned. A stable society rarely changes its laws or changes its behavior for some reason. This was a case from 5 years ago. At the time, it was a sensation. Although all kinds of evidence showed that the children had died in his hands, other than the body of the child that was found, the bodies of the other children were not found, and he was still unwilling to confess. Even so, it doesn't seem necessary, right? Do you know where the child's body was found? Chen Zhao thought for a moment and then shook his head. No. In his study, right in the middle of the room. Soaked in formalin, her organs removed. She's a girl less than 5 years old, Daily Moore said. Chen Zhao's expression changed slightly. When we bought this house, we only heard that someone had died here. We didn't know much about it. So you moved in. Actually, it wasn't their fault. With a cheap house, normal people wouldn't consider too many precautions that were beyond common sense. After we moved in, nothing happened in the first week. But one night, when Neil was eating dinner, he suddenly vomited. What he vomited wasn't food, but an indescribable white substance. We were scared and hurriedly sent him to the hospital, but the results showed that everything was normal. At the same time, we sent his vomit for testing. The results were very strange. The white substance was a mixture of liquid, protein, and tissue cells. It was like he ate a living thing and then vomited it out, Chen Zhao said. The couple nodded heavily, but their expressions were very unnatural. But there was no tissue structure. The testing was also very strange. They couldn't find out what kind of organism the cells belonged to. And then Neil's behavior became more and more strange, especially at night. We often heard strange sounds. Chen Zhao listened to the couple's narration like he was listening to a horror story. The development was also like a horror story. The child called Neil became more and more abnormal. He did things that scared the couple. For example, he killed Jerry, who'd grown up with Neil. Another example was the destruction of all the furniture and decorations in his own room. Moreover, what he had done was not something a child could do. The day before things went completely out of control, Delamore visited Olette and found out what had happened to him. That night, Dahlia Moore brought Navot Singh over. At first, Navot thought that Neil was possessed by a demon. However, after 2 rounds, he realized that little Neil wasn't possessed by a devil. He was a demon. Navot Singh's magic injured Neil. The blood on Neil's body turned milky white. Just as Navot was about to subdue Neil, he suddenly exploded with even more power. He injured Navot Singh and escaped through the door. Just then, Chen Zhao saw a 7 or 8-year-old boy standing in the darkness opposite the door. The boy was staring at the people outside without blinking. This youth was obviously little Neil. However, Neil had a chilling smile on his face at the moment. Chapter 2592. Little Neil was less than 20 meters away from Chen. However, Chen's little world was obstructed by these short 20 meters. Chen Feng raised his finger, and a black ball condensed between his fingers. He casually pointed at Neil, and the black ball shot out towards him. However, the black ball suddenly disappeared in the middle of its flight. Ha! Jen was surprised. Just as Jen was about to step through the door, Navot pulled him back. Don't go in. It's very scary inside. I feel like my mana has been contaminated. Every bit of mana I use brings me one step closer to the darkness. Chen was no stranger to this. This was the power of hell. In fact, the aura of hell here was even stronger than that of the demonic island. This place wasn't as big as Demon Island, and it wasn't filled with demons like Demon Island. However, the environment here was truly like hell. What's up there? Just then, Madame Olette pointed at the ceiling and exclaimed. Above their heads, there was a layer of film-like substance. The thin film spread out from the door and covered the entire ceiling of the basement. What the hell is that? Olette's face was also filled with terror. Jen was also confused. This was clearly not a naturally occurring substance. These thin films were releasing an aura filled with the smell of sulfur. It was as if this thing had turned this place into hell. And this thing seemed to be expanding. At this moment, everyone realized that the ground had become sticky. The ground that was originally covered with concrete had now turned into a swamp. The concrete floor turned to sludge. Following that, terrifying monsters began to crawl out from within. These monsters were all strangely shaped. Some had slender bodies, while others had 2 legs on the left and 1 on the right. Some had 2 heads, while others had eyes all over their heads and bodies. They looked like something that had crawled out of an abstract painting by Picasso. That kind of asymmetrical feeling was very uncomfortable. Owlette and his wife screamed in fear. With a wave of his hand, a dozen or so black balls shot out. The abstraction-type monsters were blasted into pieces by Chin Fan. However, these abstract monsters did not have any substantial lethality. At least, Chin didn't sense any threat from them. They were more like the physical manifestation of some kind of power. Chen looked at little Neil, who had been standing there the entire time. Little Neil had a strange smile on his face. There was no innocence, nor was it pure evil. Anyway, that kind of smile made people feel uncomfortable. Jen grabbed a black ball. With a flick of his finger, the black ball flew out. But the black sphere disappeared again. Just like Jen's first attack. However, although the black ball had disappeared from Chen's sight, Chen could not see it. However, when Chen had created the black ball, he had added dark magma. Therefore, no matter where the black ball disappeared or went, Chen would be able to sense it. Unless the black sphere was blocked by a different dimension. However, Chen could still clearly feel the presence of the black ball. In other words, the black sphere was still there and had not truly disappeared. However, Chen couldn't be sure where the black ball had gone. Chen had an idea. He looked back at Violet and his wife. "Do you mind if I tear down your house?" "Huh?" The couple was dumbfounded. They did not understand what Chen meant. "Chen, we're about to lose our lives. How can we care about other things? The most important thing right now is to think of a way to escape. We can talk about other things later." Daleymore's words were not directed at Chin. Instead, she was reminding the couple. "Mr. Chin, Daleymore is right. The most important thing right now is to escape. Then I don't have to worry about anything." Hundreds of small black balls appeared around Jen. These black balls weighed anywhere from a few thousand to tens of thousands of tons. Chen could lift a black ball weighing 10 million tons with his little heaven and earth. However, he could easily create and control hundreds of black balls that were hundreds or thousands of times smaller. Chen waved his hand and hundreds of black balls shot at little Neil. However, the hundreds of black balls disappeared again. Just like before. The next moment, Chen snapped his fingers. In an instant, all the black balls that were lost in the unknown area were devoured and exploded. Every single one of these black balls was extraordinarily powerful. Even the weakest one was several times more powerful than a grenade. Thousands of tons of air was compressed into a ball with a diameter of 3 to 4 centimeters and released instantly. The impact it caused was definitely more terrifying than a grenade. Although the two energy release methods were different, one was physical energy, the other was a chemical reaction, the effect was the same. They both produced an impact through the instantaneous release of energy. The weakest one was several times more powerful than a grenade. The stronger ones, weighing tens of thousands of tons, were even more terrifying. When all the small black balls exploded in an instant, the black balls exploded. Mr. and Mrs. Aulette, Dahlia Moore, and Nawats Hingis all looked up. They saw that the ceiling above them had disappeared. Not only had the ceiling disappeared, but the entire villa had also disappeared. A terrifying air current howled above their heads. As expected, Chen had already guessed it. Now, he was even more certain of his guess. Nawat Singh had long known how terrifying Chen was. After all, she had experienced it herself. Thus, her reaction was the calmest. The couple were ordinary people to begin with. They had been frightened out of their wits. They had no idea what had happened. Without the villa, Chen Zhao could finally feel the space around him more directly. The small world that had been surrounded by darkness suddenly became clear under the starry sky. Chen's little heaven and earth had completely expanded. Chen was no longer suppressed. He was no longer confined to a small space. Chen shot out another black ball. When the black ball was 10 meters away from little Neil, it suddenly made a turn and shot into the sky at a right angle. Although Chen's little heaven and earth had expanded, it still couldn't approach Neil. It was as if there was also a powerful little heaven and earth in front of him. Chen's little heaven and earth couldn't advance at all. This was definitely not a power that a newly awakened youth could possess and control. There was a powerful soul in Neil's body. Get out of that child's body. Just then, Neil spoke. Do you know who I am? To be precise, it was the soul in his body. No, Chen said calmly. You don't have to tell me your identity. I'm not interested. Chapter 2593. Chen Zhao shook his arm and a neutron star condensed in his right palm. At the same time, little Neil also attacked. A black cloud appeared behind little Neil as gigantic red claws extended out from the black cloud. Chen Zhao's right hand was condensing the neutron star while his left finger pressed down. Instantly, the pressure in the small world before him increased by 100 times. The red claws were pressed to the ground and shattered. However, the flesh crushed by the giant red claw was squirming. It even showed signs of reassembling. Chen Zhao raised an eyebrow. 1,000 times the pressure. Chen Zhao's left finger pressed down again. Instantly, a terrifying force crushed the flesh on the ground. The flesh and blood were directly compressed to the point of separation. This wasn't enough. Chen Zhao's finger kept pressing down. It was like a huge hammer pounding the flesh into paste. The terrifying force kept hitting the ground. The flesh had already turned into paste. Just then, Chen Zhao realized that his small world was absorbing the flesh. It was very, very weak, but very clear. After absorbing the flesh, the small world started condensing life force. Ha! Chen Zhao was surprised. Was this the real use of the small world? The paste that Chen Zhao had pounded gradually lost its vitality as the small world kept absorbing. Little Neil didn't notice anything strange. He was still summoning the giant red claws. Chen Zhao's lips twitched. His eyes were filled with mockery. But look at Daily Moore, Not Sing, and the owlets. Chen Zhao and little Neil were clearly engaged in an extremely dangerous battle of magical powers. Chen Zhao, on the other hand, seemed to be at a disadvantage. Chen Zhao's attacks weren't the kind that could be seen. Chen Zhao only controlled the small world to crush the giant red claws. Little Neil's attacks seemed more threatening. He seemed to be suppressing Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao was struggling to hold on. The amount of life force he could absorb was very little. But it was better than nothing. The giant red claws weren't pure living creatures. They were probably only formed by Little Neil's power. Chen Zhao thought, what if they're real living creatures? And, what if they're humans? Little Neil's expression turned serious. Clearly, he realized that Chen Zhao wasn't an ordinary opponent. Just then, Chen Zhao's neutron star was complete. Chen Zhao pushed neutron star out. Even though he had yet to touch Little Neil, he could still sense the terrifying power contained within the seemingly insignificant, or even insignificant, black ball. Little Neil's eyes widened as he raised his palms with all his might. Ah! Little Neil let out a low growl. It was as if he was lifting something heavy. The small world in front of him also began to distort. At the same time, he could have resisted Chen Zhao's small world. But to block Chen Zhao's neutron star, he had to concentrate the power of his domain. This caused the invasion of Chen Zhao's small world. Chen Zhao realized that Neil's little world seemed to be distorted. He recalled that he was able to change the trajectory of his black ball at a right angle. Now that he thought about it, he finally understood what Neil's little world was for. If Chen Zhao's little world had no element, it was the purest form of power. Then, Little Neil's pocket world was to create distorted passageways. Just like Chen Zhao's previous attack, a small black ball shot toward Neil. Through spatial distortion, Little Neil had directly caused the black ball to bend. To the black ball, it had been flying in a straight line all along. But to outsiders, it looked like it was making a turn. However, there was a limit to the power of spatial distortion. The black ball was like a piece of paper, but neutron star was like a steel plate. The difficulty of playing with it was naturally much higher. Suddenly, a malicious smile appeared on Chen Zhao's face. Just as he was about to release neutron star, he suddenly thought of something. Chen Zhao retracted his palms. Little Neil roared angrily. When everyone looked at Little Neil, they realized that his body seemed to have bent. In fact, because everyone's vision had been distorted, Little Neil's body also became distorted when they looked at him. But under Little Neil's forceful spatial distortion, neutron star was finally sent to the sky. Neutron star shot into the sky. Boom! Without any source of light, it was like thunder. At the same time, the clouds in the sky were swept away. Instantly, the entire night sky cleared up. Everyone looked at the star-filled sky in shock. It was unprecedentedly dazzling and eye-catching. The owlets, Daily Moore, and Nawat Singh were all stunned by this shocking scene. The entire sky above Los Angeles turned bright. A huge hole appeared in the clouds in the sky. Chen Zhao started walking toward Little Neil. Because Chen Zhao's small world had completely invaded Little Neil's. So, he didn't need to worry about Little Neil's counterattack anymore. With a serious expression, Little Neil took 2 steps back. Stop! To move neutron star away, Little Neil had used up a lot of energy. Now, he couldn't even let his small world fight Chen Zhao's. You can't stop me. If you come near me again, I'll kill this host, Little Neil roared. Chen Zhao stopped. The owlets panicked. Mrs. Owlet shouted, "What do you want? We promise you, don't hurt our child." Chen Zhao didn't speak, although he didn't want to let this powerful soul go. But he could understand the couple's choice. If he put himself in their shoes, he would make the same choice. After all, his child was in someone else's hands. In the end, it was the owlets who had invited him. So, there was no need for him to continue being the bad guy. But this didn't mean that he could just watch the powerful soul that had taken over little Neil's body escape. I want you to leave immediately. Now. The couple looked at Qin Zhao. But Qin Zhao stood where he was without moving. Sir, Qin Zhao glanced at the couple. If you back off, your child will be doomed. He'll kill your child's soul and then reconstruct his body. Of course, if you want me to leave now, don't come looking for me in the future. But little Neil is still in his hands. Qin Zhao licked his lips. If you leave this to me, I have a way to force his soul out. Ha! Maybe you can make my soul leave this body, but you can't stop me from killing this body. Then let's make a bet. Qin Zhao looked at the boy's appearance calmly. Kill this child. This is your only chance. Then, I'll kill your soul. Chapter 2594. If he killed the child, his soul would lose its attachment. By then, Qin Zhao would have nothing to worry about. But facing Qin Zhao's aggressiveness, the powerful soul in the child's body was very passive. However, Qin Zhao had already expressed his attitude. If he didn't leave something behind today, then he definitely wouldn't be able to escape. He would either leave the child's body or his soul. But if he gave up this body, he would lose his last bit of support. After all, there was no way to restrain Qin Zhao. By then, his life and death wouldn't be up to him. The owlets looked nervously at the two people confronting each other. It wasn't that they didn't know what was good for them. They knew that not speaking now was the best choice. The situation here wasn't something they could participate in at all. It wasn't that he hadn't thought about risking his life. But the power that Qin Zhao had displayed was clearly stronger than his. And now, his little world had been completely taken over by Qin Zhao. Now, he could only hide in his little world. He wouldn't let Qin Zhao succeed so easily. He had predicted that this was the end of days. There was almost no one he could fight against. Even in the prosperous magic era, there were only a few people who could fight against him. So, he was confident that reviving in this era was the safest and safest. Then, he could slowly wait for the next prosperous magic era to arrive. In this era, he had enough time to accumulate. Accumulate wealth, resources, and manpower. He was already very familiar with this. He had experienced the end of days 3 times. The cycle of each spiritual tide was 500 years. In other words, he had experienced a span of 1,500 years. Of course, this didn't mean that he was 1,500 years old. Instead, he would wake up at a specific time each time. He was very accurate at this time. Every time, he would occupy a youth's body and use a small amount of time to recover his cultivation to prolong his life. Then, he would occupy resources and wait for the spiritual tide to arrive. That way, he could get twice the results with half the effort during the prosperous magic era. The strong people who rose in the prosperous magic era couldn't surpass him either. After all, others rose with the era. But he could reach the peak at the beginning of the prosperous magic era. The first 3 times had been smooth, but he didn't expect this. He had just revived and already encountered such a troublesome problem. The man before him was even stronger than he had been at his peak. He had met all sorts of geniuses. Some geniuses could even threaten him. But even a genius needed time to accumulate. However, the man in front of him was unbelievably powerful, and he was very young. Qin Zhao made him feel extremely threatened. After all, he had originally thought that there were no experts in this era. Even if there were, they would be very old. They must have started cultivating during the middle and late stages of the spiritual energy tide. Therefore, they didn't have much time left. Basically, it was impossible to hold out until the next spirit chi tide arrived. although the bodies he occupied were usually those of youths without any magic power. However, his realm was there, so his strength recovered very quickly. He had only occupied this body for a few days, but he had already recovered 70% of his strength. However, this was basically all the power he could recover. If he wanted to increase his strength, he wouldn't have to recover, but cultivate. At the same time, because he had slept and cultivated his soul 3 times, it had been close to 500 years. This was also why Chen Zhao felt that his soul was very powerful. Chen Zhao and Little Neil were in a stalemate. The powerful soul in Little Neil's body couldn't escape, but it couldn't beat Chen Zhao either. Moreover, his soul power had to recover to its previous realm before he could take over another body. Otherwise, even if his soul took over another body, it would be greatly damaged. This was because every time he took over someone else's body, he would sacrifice a portion of his power so that he could quickly fuse with the body. But now, he had already sacrificed a portion of his soul power, but before it could completely fuse with the body, Chen Zhao had come to him. If he wanted to take over a new body next time, he had no more soul power to sacrifice, so he could only sacrifice the essence of his soul. Suddenly, Little Neil felt something appear in his little world. However, because of the interference of Chen Zhao's little world, he couldn't clearly feel what it was. Little Neil immediately tensed up. He didn't see anything in his field of vision. But he knew that Chen Zhao definitely wouldn't coexist peacefully with him. Chen Zhao must be doing something that he didn't know. Just then, a smile appeared on Chen Zhao's face. It's here. Little Neil's body tensed up instantly. The owlets also became very nervous. They seemed to have seen something too. Just then, Little Neil saw a black ball appear in front of him. Chen Zhao's little world had already completely invaded Little Neil's little world. Therefore, he could condense the black ball at any location within the range. Little Neil knew the terrifying power of these black balls. Did he want to completely destroy the boy's body? Damn, this guy is a demon. Little Neil instantly cast a powerful magic shield on himself. At the same time, the black ball exploded. Boom! With a loud bang, Little Neil's magic shield received a huge impact. However, Little Neil felt that the might was a little weaker. It wasn't as strong as he imagined. Did he use up his magic too? Or, did he have other plans? Little Neil's expression grew more and more serious. Just then, Little Neil felt something burrowing out from under his feet. Little Neil immediately rose into the air. A smile appeared on Chen Zhao's face. Little Neil suddenly felt his head hit something. He looked up and saw a black substance. The black substance was covering his head. It was waiting for him to crash into it. Damn! I was tricked. Only then did Little Neil realize that both the black ball and the thing hidden in the ground were just a feint. The real killer move was the black substance. It was precisely because his little world senses were messed up. As a result, he didn't even know what had invaded his domain. He didn't even know where it was. At the same time, the dark lava poured into Little Neil's mouth. Little Neil! The owlets exclaimed. They could only watch as their child was swallowed by the dark lava, but they couldn't do anything. Come out! Chen Zhao let the dark lava pour into Little Neil's mouth, nose, and ears. However, Chen Zhao didn't plan to show this scene to the owlets. Chapter 2595. In the churning dark lava, the powerful soul escaped from Neil's body. Roar! A humanoid figure flipped out of the dark lava. However, this figure was completely covered in dark lava. Since you want me to leave that body, then give me your body. The powerful soul ignored the dark magma on its body and launched its final attack on Jen. However, Chen didn't even give him a chance to get close. A wave of dark magma converged and smashed the powerful soul into pieces. The powerful soul was covered by the dark lava again. "You damned bastard," Chen was still expressionless, ignoring the powerful soul's curses. However, the dark lava suddenly ignited with red nirvana flames. "Ah!" The powerful soul cried out in pain. The dark lava with nirvana flames suddenly shot out a sharp spike, piercing through the soul's chest. The soul struggled even more frantically. Chen raised his eyebrows. A strange feeling filled his heart. Compatible enemy. This was a long-lost feeling. Back when Chen activated the soul key, the first compatible enemy he encountered was the black dragon in the Tower of Trials. The so-called compatible enemy was an old enemy. What kind of enemy was a good enemy? Of course it was a dead enemy. Actually, they didn't have any grudges. However, they were compatible enemies. This also meant that they were destined to be enemies. If he let him go today, they would become mortal enemies in the future. Chen devoured the soul fragment he tore out of the soul's chest. Countless knowledge and memories surged into Chen's mind. However, this soul fragment was too small. Many of the memories were very fragmented. There wasn't a complete memory at all. But at least Chen knew the name of this powerful soul. Adu Ranger, from England. The first group of exiles on the American continent. Of course, rather than being exiled, it was better to say that he was self-exiled. However, that was all Chen Zhao knew. Just then, Adu Ranger launched another counterattack. "Let's die together." Adu Ranger seemed to feel that Chen's attack was damaging his soul. This made him want to die. Bright red flames ignited on Adu Ranger's body. It was even redder and more shocking than nirvana flames. It was the fire of life. A flame at the cost of life. Meanwhile, Adu Ranger had forced the dark lava away. Adu Ranger didn't choose to flee this time. Instead, he charged at Chen. The formless Adu Ranger actually engaged in melee combat with Chen Play. He swung his fist at Chen. Although Adu Rhinestone was in soul form, his soul form was 4 meters tall, more than twice the size of Jen's. However, Chen Zhao was curious as to what the point of such an attack was. Therefore, Chen did not dodge at all. But when the punch landed on Chen's body, Jen's head spun, and he staggered a few steps back. At the same time, Jen's soul was almost smashed out of his body. The next moment, Chen's soul returned to his body. Jen shook his head and looked at Adu Ranger in shock. What a terrifying soul attack. The focus of that punch was not a physical attack at all. Instead, it was an attack from the soul. At this time, Adu Rhinestone's second attack came. It was another simple punch. This time, Jen didn't dare to take the punch head-on. Instead, he quickly retreated to avoid the punch. At this moment, Chen's eyes shone with a ferocious light. Adu Rhinestone was both anxious and angry when he saw that his second punch didn't hit Chen. After all, the first punch could be said to be unexpected. He had thought that even if he couldn't kill Chen with his first punch, he would still be able to kill Chen. At the very least, it could damage Chen's soul. Then, he would be able to attack continuously. It was like a fight between two ordinary people. Whoever stabbed the other party first would have the advantage. That was Adu Rhinestone's plan. However, he didn't expect Chen's soul to be more resilient than he had imagined. It only took an instant for his soul and body to fuse back together. This caused his second attack to miss. The longer it dragged on, the more disadvantageous it would be for him. This was because he was completely relying on burning his life force to temporarily increase the combat power of his soul. He couldn't last long at all. This time, Adu Ranger pounced at Chen. although they were currently engaged in a magical battle. But sometimes, street fighting was the most direct and simple way to determine who was better. However, Adu Rhinestone didn't expect something like this to happen. At this moment, Chen also chose to pounce on him. With a physical body, Chen was far superior to Adu Rhinestone in every aspect. This caused Adu Rhinestone to be pinned down by Chen. Chen pounced on Adu Leinster, then bent down and bit Adu Leinster's shoulder. "Ah! Ah! What are you doing?" Adu Rhinestone screamed in terror. The pain from his soul made him wail almost crazily. However, Chen didn't care about Adu Rhinestone at all. The soul fragment was chewed a few times in Chen's mouth. With the high temperature of the flame of life, it was swallowed into Chen's stomach. Although it was painful, it was still within Chen's acceptable range. Ever since Chen had completely fused with the blood of gluttony, Chen was already a hybrid with demon blood. At this point, Chen could already eat like a glutton. Moreover, the target was Chen's natural enemy. Thus, Chen Qi directly devoured Adu Rhinestone. However, to Chen's surprise, Adu Rhinestone's soul, which was burning with the flame of life, was even more delicious than he had imagined. It was even better than the most delicious food Chen had ever eaten. Chen licked his lips. "Your soul is delicious." Instantly, Adu Rhinestone's hair stood on end. Behind him, Daily Moore, Navatsinger, and Olette almost peed their pants. Devouring souls. Even the thought of it was terrifying. Compared to Adu Rhinestone, they felt that Chen was even scarier. "Get out of my way." Adu Rhinestone pushed at Chen with both arms. However, Chen pressed down on Adu Rhinestone's arms with both hands. Adu Rhinestone couldn't move his arms at all. Chen bent down again and bit down hard on Adu Rhinestone's neck. This time, Chen tore out a large piece of Adu Rhinestone's soul fragment. Half of Adu Rhinestone's neck was gone. Chen heavily sucked the soul fragment into his mouth. His cheeks puffed up. Chen chewed with all his might and swallowed with difficulty. Chapter 2596. In everyone's eyes. Chen Zhao was the scariest demon. Demon power. Chen Zhao discovered something from Yedu Ranger's soul fragment. His power was very similar to Chen Zhao's. They both came from hell and demons. However, he was very different from Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao's power belonged to him. But Yedu Ranger's power was borrowed from a demon. He had to return the borrowed power. When Chen Zhao devoured half of Yedu Ranger's soul, a magic formation suddenly appeared on the ground where Yedu Ranger was lying. A demonic hand reached out from the formation and grabbed Yedu Ranger's soul. The demonic hand emanated a terrifying aura. Even if it was just a hand. Chen Zhao's eyes flashed with displeasure. As he grabbed Yedu Ranger with one hand, he smashed the demonic hand with the other. The demonic hand was smashed into pieces. "Who is it?" The magic formation suddenly turned into an abyss. A terrifying and angry voice spread from the depths of the abyss. "Fuck you." Chen Zhao held Yedu Ranger's soul and floated in the air. He retorted at the owner of the voice in the abyss. The owner of that demonic hand was a great lord-class demon. But so what? Just a little bit of power was already the limit of a demon lord. This bit of power wasn't even enough to scratch an itch for Chen Zhao. Even if his real body could come to the human world, Chen Zhao wouldn't be afraid of him. "Human, I'll remember your aura. Just you wait." The greater demon overlord could only say some harsh words and not continue to infiltrate his power. He could also feel Chen Zhao's aura. Chen Zhao was at the same level as him. Unless his true body appeared, no matter how much power he used, it would all be useless. The greater demon overlord also understood that the two sides were separated by a world. Thus, they couldn't do anything to each other. Now that he was on Chen Zhao's main battlefield, he was even more helpless. The so-called threatening words were just giving himself a way out when he couldn't do anything. Chen Zhao glanced at the half-dead Yadu Ranger in his hand. Most of his soul had been eaten by Chen Zhao. At the moment, his mind wasn't clear. Every time Chen Zhao bit off a piece of the soul, he gained more. Unlike when he absorbed the Black Dragon's soul, he only obtained a small number of fragments. This time, Chen Zhao's devouring method was more direct. As a result, the knowledge gained would also increase. Chen Zhao had a rough understanding of Yadu's power. Yadu Ranger had been a magician for hire in his early years. Not to mention leading a great battle, every time he went on the battlefield, he was surrounded by danger. However, his luck was not bad. He picked up a ring with a demonic mark. The original owner of this ring had a contract with that greater demon overlord. It was a very simple contract, similar to the modern usury. The greater demon lord would lend its power to the contractor in exchange for a soul sacrifice. Of course, the sacrifices were all other people's souls. However, the souls sacrificed each time were only counted as interest. Yadu Ranger was indeed a capable person. His predecessor was abandoned because he was unable to repay the interest of the previous greater demon overlord. However, Yadu Ranger had maintained this state for 1,500 years, and half of that time had been spent in slumber. Under such circumstances, he could still repay the interest of the greater demon overlord. One could imagine how many souls he had sacrificed in the past. Even the greater demon overlord admired Yadu Ranger. He felt that Yadu was a promising talent. Every time Yadu Ranger obtained a new body, he would receive a gift from the greater demon overlord, giving him a longer life than normal people. Of course, this admiration came with a price. Yadu Ranger's conflict with the greater demon overlord became even more complicated. The greater demon overlord could even sense Yadu Ranger's condition. For example, just now, Yadu Ranger's soul had been severely damaged. Using the contract, the greater demon overlord sent his power into the human world. He wanted to take back what Yadu Ranger owed him with interest. If it was someone else, they wouldn't be able to protect their spoils of war. Only Chen Zhao dared to face a greater demon overlord head-on. The magic formation gradually dissipated. Chen Zhao looked at the incomplete soul in his hand. He didn't plan on letting Yadu Ranger go. As for Nawat Singh and Delamore, their senses were much more stimulated than the owlets. After all, the owlets had only felt the impact of their naked eyes. But the two of them were facing a terrifying pressure that seemed to be solid. Facing an enemy like that, they didn't even have the courage to resist. They couldn't shatter the demon's hand like Chen Zhao had. Chen Zhao was silent for a long time. He muttered the demon's name in his heart. Shane Kaslafar. It wasn't a good thing to be targeted by a greater demon overlord. Perhaps Shane Kaslafar thought that he couldn't enter hell. But that didn't mean he didn't want to take revenge. Perhaps he couldn't fight Chen Zhao head-on in the human world. But if he wanted to create some trouble for Chen Zhao, it wouldn't be a problem. Clearly, Shane didn't know that Chen Zhao remembered his vicious words. Chen Zhao had always adhered to the principle of never waiting for revenge. Moreover, he wanted to use Shane Kaslafar for a small experiment. After devouring Yadu Ranger's soul, Chen Zhao had a clearer understanding of Shane Kaslafar. Of course, Yadu Ranger was only Shane Kaslafar's second party. His understanding of Shane Kaslafar was very limited. Chen Zhao glanced at the owlets. Little Neil's body appeared in the dark lava. He was sound asleep. Little Neil was sent to the owlets. Chen, what's wrong with him? Delamore asked. His soul is severely damaged, Chen Zhao said calmly. If you had come to me during the first 1 or 2 days after his body was taken, his soul wouldn't have been so badly damaged. But a week has passed and half of his soul has been absorbed by that guy. Just now, I forced that guy out of the child's body, so his soul was torn even more. Why did you do that? You could have saved my child. Owlet stared at Chen Zhao angrily. Chen Zhao glanced at her indifferently. What do you think I should have done? I've already done everything I could. If you think that I didn't care about your son and let him become nourishment for that soul, then I'm sorry, but I was wrong. Chapter 2597. Facing the cowering couple, Chen Zhao didn't want to argue with them. Chen Zhao didn't want to bother with the couple who loved their son too much. At least, they dared to speak rudely to him when he was scary. It showed their love for their child. Chen Zhao wasn't in a good mood. But he still turned and left. Under their gazes, Chen Zhao soared into the sky and disappeared into the night in the blink of an eye. Hey, old Zhang, I want to ask you something. You rarely talk to me in such a serious tone. What is it? Is there a demonic path in this world? Ha! What are you looking at that made you dumbfounded? No. There's no absolute demonic path in this world. There are evil sects, but there are no demonic paths. So you're saying that techniques that can absorb people's vitality don't exist, like in movies and novels. There are cultivation techniques or spells that can absorb one's essence, qi, and spirit, but I've never heard of a cultivation technique that can absorb one's vitality. Why? You met one. Chen Zhao didn't want to tell Zhang Tianyi that he'd learned a technique that could absorb other people's vitality. He was worried that Zhang Tianyi wouldn't be able to control his inner demon. After all, it was normal for people to be more afraid of death as they grew older. To prolong one's life. Who knew if he would do something that would cross the line? Chen Zhao didn't dare to overestimate anyone's morality. Even if the person was highly respected. Chen Zhao suddenly thought of a possibility. The heavenly pattern of the small world was like a growing sapling. The flesh and blood were like nutrients for the heavenly pattern. But Chen Zhao wasn't sure if everyone's small world and heavenly pattern were the same. Or, did you learn a technique that absorbs other people's vitality? Zhang Tianyi seemed to have sensed something. Chen Zhao still answered Zhang Tianyi's question with silence. Zhang Tianyi seemed to confirm his guess. After a while, Zhang Tianyi said, "Can you tell me the specifics?" Chen Zhao was hesitating whether to tell Zhang Tianyi. But if Zhang Tianyi activated the heavenly pattern himself, he would eventually come into contact with it. The difference was nothing more than a question of whether it was a little earlier or a little later. In the end, Chen Zhao told Zhang Tianyi his discovery. Zhang Tianyi was silent for a while. Are you afraid that I'll go down the wrong path? Don't you think I should be afraid? Chen Zhao was really afraid that one day, he would be on the opposite side of Zhang Tianyi. For an existence at Zhang Tianyi's level, no one would be able to keep him in check once he harbored evil thoughts. Chen Zhao was the only person in the world who could fight against him. I already have some guesses about your situation. You have a guess. What you're absorbing isn't the life force in the flesh, but the nutrients. Zhang Tianyi's guess seemed to be very consistent with his own. You and I both know that the higher one's cultivation, the longer one's lifespan will be. However, the key question is, how is the process of transforming power into lifespan achieved? What you've discovered just proves that the process of transforming power into lifespan. Although we haven't completely analyzed it, it has already taken us a big step forward. Zhang Tianyi paused for a moment, then continued, the flesh that your enemy summoned was made entirely out of mana, and didn't have any life force. However, your heaven and earth heavenly pattern was able to absorb it. This means that you weren't absorbing the life force of the flesh, but transforming it. You're already a big step ahead of the three of us. In fact, your progress is even faster than we imagined. In the next 100 years, you'll have enough time to become the world's top cultivator. And in the spiritual tide era after that, you'll be the best in the world. Zhang Tianyi's tone was a bit emotional, but also a bit envious. He wasn't envious of Qin Zhao's cultivation, but of his era. In the age of chaos, Qin Zhao's cultivation had almost reached the peak. His cultivation was enough for him to last until the spiritual tide era, and he even had a lot to spare. Moreover, with his surging life force, he didn't need to be like other cultivators of the same realm who didn't dare to fight even when they were old. For example, the 23rd generation Blood Mary. Her cultivation was indeed the best in the world. But now, she was like an ordinary old person. Even the slightest movement would hurt her muscles and bones. Every time she fought, she would use up a large amount of life force. To put it bluntly, the next 200 years would belong to Qin Zhao. And Qin Zhao wasn't just the best in terms of power. More importantly, he had thick skin and flesh. He had almost indestructible physical defense and terrifying magic resistance. This also eliminated the danger of him dying. Killing Qin Zhao was almost as difficult as destroying a modern country. And a country with nuclear weapons. After communicating with Zhang Tianyi, Qin Zhao suddenly felt happy. So he wasn't absorbing life force. Next, he would go to hell and kill the threat in the cradle. Qin Zhao took out another phone and called the handsome guy. Hi. The video call went through. Qin Zhao saw a battlefield, a terrifying one. It was a scene of billions of demons fighting against a terrifying dragon, while the handsome young man stood in the air. Qin Zhao remembered that terrifying dragon, Ancestral Dragon. He had been lucky enough to accept the handsome guy's invitation and ride on Ancestral Dragon once. For Qin Zhao back then and now, it was an extremely honorable thing. Rather than a battle, it was more like a one-sided massacre. Although there were countless of them, they were facing the most powerful dragon clan. When his wings were spread out, they could cover an entire city. A single breath from him could turn millions of evil demons into ashes. What are you doing? Qin Zhao asked. Watching a massacre, the handsome guy said emotionlessly. It was indeed a massacre. The billions of demons Qin Zhao saw were only the remnants of the defeated army. The battlefield stretched across the boundless realm. Countless demon corpses were still lying on the ground. I need to go to hell. Can you summon me there? Why do you want to go to hell? Qin Zhao told them the whole story. Simply put, he had to get rid of the root of the problem. Okay. Now. Yes. This was Qin Zhao's first time seeing a summoning. In the past, when Beelzebub Zophie summoned him, he could only see traces of a magic array left behind. However, the handsome young man's summoning was much simpler. He casually raised his hand, and the demon corpses below seemed to be affected by some kind of power. Their blood began to gather in the air, and a magic array hovering in the air was completed. Chapter 2598. In the blink of an eye, Qin had arrived in hell. The scene from the video was completely different from the feeling of being in a boundless battlefield. Even high up in the sky, Qin still couldn't see the end of the battlefield. Ancestral Dragon also sensed Qin's arrival. He still had some impression of this human. But to him, Qin was just a small interlude. It didn't affect his killing spree. Qin had an idea. Ancestral Dragon, do you still need these corpses? Why? Even if you use them as food, they're the most disgusting food, the handsome guy answered matter-of-factly. Do you need them? I'm not sure if I need them. The handsome guy gestured for Qin to go ahead. Qin landed on the battlefield. Even without Qin's control, the heavenly patterns in the small world were already absorbing the blood on the ground. Chen could feel that the small world was growing rapidly. The heavenly patterns in the small world were also flourishing. Chen was shocked. Why was the growth speed of the heavenly patterns faster than all the cultivation he'd done after activating them? One must know that his heavenly runes had been nurtured in the river diagram for several years at the very least. But in just a few minutes, Chen's heavenly patterns had at least doubled in size. After a closer look, Chen found the problem. Within the range of Chen's little world, a corpse caught Chen's attention. Even though the corpse was already dead, it was still emitting a powerful aura. It was the corpse of a greater demon lord. The greater demon lord's corpse wasn't very large. But the aura it emitted was terrifying beyond compare. No wonder. Chen's heart skipped a beat. Raising his hand, a wave of energy descended from the air and blasted the corpse of the greater fiend overlord. Flesh and blood splattered in an instant. Chen greedily absorbed the greater demon lord's power. Although the amount of life force he could produce wasn't much. Compared to Chen's total life force, it was just a drop in the ocean. But the heavenly patterns in Chen's small world were flourishing. Compared to ancestral Gragon, Chen was more like a trash picker. But Chen was very happy to pick them up. Just then, the handsome guy's voice reached Chen's ears. 1,000 miles ahead of you, there are 2 greater demon lords' corpses. Chen looked up at the handsome guy in the sky and nodded slightly. The value of the nearby greater demon overlord had basically been sucked dry by Chen. Chen Zhao ran straight to where the handsome guy was pointing. Although the corpses of the 2 greater demon overlords were inconspicuous, they were very easy to find. That was because they exuded an extraordinary aura. After absorbing the essence of the first great demon lord, Chen felt that the power of his little world had more than doubled. Rather than strength, it should be called growth. Chen used the same trick again, frantically absorbing the power of the 2 greater demon overlords as nutrients for the minor world pattern. Although the amount of life force was better than nothing, the growth of the small world had reached an astonishing level. The coverage of the small heaven and earth did not increase by much. Instead, it was more of an internal growth. The diameter of the pocket world was originally a little over 1,000 meters. Even after cultivating for a long time, it only extended to about 1,100 meters. Currently, the diameter of the small world was about 1,300 meters. Proportionally speaking, it had indeed grown a lot. However, compared to the increase in range, Chen was more concerned about the internal growth. After absorbing the essence of the 2 greater demon overlords, the power of Chen's little world had increased by at least 10 times. This was not the effect of 1 plus 1. The difference between a 200-kilogram fatty and a 200-kilogram strong man was not just a little. In the past, Chen's little world had always been fat. It was huge, even bigger than Zhang Tianyi, 23rd Blood Mary, and Bifla's little world combined. However, in terms of strength, it was even weaker than them. After Zhen activated his little world, the situation had improved considerably. Now, after a few internal growth, Chen's little world was much stronger than before. Just then, the handsome guy's voice sounded again. Your domain is very special. Special? Chen's heart skipped a beat. What's so special about it? Your domain has no attributes, but it has the ability to break down and reassemble other people's energy. Break down and reassemble. Chen was a little dazed. Even he could not understand the principles behind his little world pattern's operation. However, the handsome guy could see the principles behind his little world pattern at a glance. Everyone's domain is different, right? Actually, everyone's domain is the same. No matter how it manifests, the effect is the same. It absorbs spiritual energy from the outside world and transforms it into your own magic. Of course, it manifests differently, but the essence is the same. For example, you can use your domain to create neutron stars. That's the difference in manifestation. However, your domain can break down and reassemble other people's energy. That's very special. After all, Chen and the handsome guy were a Pacific Ocean apart, so Chen could only barely understand part of the content. The more profound questions, such as what the handsome guy had said about breaking down and reassembling other people's energy. All Jen could understand was the literal meaning. Also, the greater demon overlord you're looking for is in that direction. The handsome guy pointed Chen in that direction. Thank you. You're welcome. Also, don't forget my request. It's already in progress. That's good. I'll go there first. If there's time, we can talk again. Go. It'll be a tough battle, the handsome guy said. Is that Shane Kaslafar very strong? The handsome guy suddenly smiled. If I reveal the answer now, it'll be very boring. You should experience the battle yourself. Trust me, it'll be very meaningful to you. Hearing the guy's words, Chen could not help but be curious. What kind of battle would be meaningful to him? Chen did not know how far away Shane Kaslafar was from him. Anyway, if he followed the direction the handsome guy had pointed out, he would definitely be right. Chen moved forward in energy form, so he was naturally very fast. He also intentionally hid his aura. Shane Kaslafar remembered his aura. If Chen approached him, he would definitely sense it and raise his guard. Chapter 2599. In the southwest of Hell, in the center of the Black Land, there was a huge volcano that never calmed down. This volcano was called the Volcano of Despair. The volcano was tens of thousands of meters tall, and hot magma bubbled in the crater all year round. The diameter of the crater was even more shocking than the height of the volcano. It was 200,000 meters in diameter, more than enough to put a town inside. Within millions of square kilometers, it was all black land. There was no vegetation at all, and no demons or forces dared to stay here. As long as it was black, it only belonged to a demon. Shane Kazrafa, the lava demon. This used to be one of the few rich countries in Hell, a country that belonged to demons. The nature of demons was difficult to restrain and manage, so demon kingdoms were rare existences in the vast Hell. Compared to the long lifespans of demons, demon countries could only exist for a very short time. 1,000-year kingdom was already considered a long time. Thousands of years ago, Shane Kazrafa came. In just one night, the supervolcano erupted with world-destroying lava. Then, the demon country was razed to the ground. The name of the lava demon also resounded in the Black Land. In the following thousands of years, Shane Kazrafa continued to wreak havoc on this land. In the end, this fertile land became a wasteland. In the crater, on the floating island where the lava had not spread, a 20-meter-tall red demon sat on his lava throne. Just then, a figure descended from the sky and landed directly in the lava, causing huge waves. The figure gradually floated up from the lava pool. Standing above the pool, the lava under his feet instantly cooled and turned into black stones. Lanka, I don't like people messing around in my territory. Shane Kazrafa looked at the newcomer with dissatisfaction. Messing around? You're saying I'm messing around? I'm an honored guest you've invited. This demon named Lanka was almost the same size as a standard human. However, his skin was pale, and there was a pair of demon horns on his head. Shane Kazrafa was very unhappy with Lanka's provocation. Don't forget where this is, and don't forget who I am. Of course I remember, Lord Kazrafa. Ronko's tone was filled with obvious disdain, completely provoking Shane Kazrafa. However, Lanka suddenly saw that half of Shane Kazrafa's left arm was gone. Hey, Kazrafa, you're actually injured. I'm very curious who broke your arm. With your injury, you won't be able to recover in less than 10 years. Shane's face darkened. It has nothing to do with you. If you think you can do whatever you want in front of me just because I'm injured, you're gravely mistaken. Due to the injury to his arm, his strength had decreased. However, this was his main battlefield after all. He was not afraid of any enemy, even if it was his old enemy, Ice Calamity Lanku. Suddenly, a huge shadow appeared above the two greater demon overlords. Lanka and Shane Kaslafar both looked up and saw a huge black monster with a lion's head and a bird's body. This monster was hundreds of times bigger than Shane Kaslafar. Onfanelli. The two demons revealed a look of fear. The huge monster called Onfanelli landed at the edge of the crater. Kiki. Kazrafa, what happened to your broken arm? Onfanelli let out a strange laugh. Shane Kazrafa's expression was very ugly. It seemed like the first thing everyone did when they arrived was laugh at his broken arm. After that, the greater devil overlords from various places appeared one after another. There were more than 30 of them, and they were all terrifying existences. The first thing these 30 greater demon overlords did was laugh at Shane Kazrafa's broken arm. Kazrafa, did you sacrifice your arm to Lord Alpha? Ha! Nicolo, you actually know how to joke. Enough. I didn't call you here today to make fun of me. Shane Kazrafa roared. Isn't that so? I called you here today because of Lord Alpha's order. Shane Kazrafa took out a crimson token. All the greater demon overlords instantly shut up. A trace of respect appeared in their eyes. They were all Demon King Alpha's vassals. Does anyone else have any objections? Lord Alpha ordered us to go to Obsidian City, Shane Kazrafa said calmly. Not any of you, but all of us. Obsidian City. That Beelzebub Sophie. There's also his wife, Iris. Lord Alpha has ordered that the couple is not allowed to continue living. He's His Majesty Beelzebub's direct subordinate. If so many of us go together, won't we anger His Majesty? Humph. His Majesty Beelzebub is supreme, but why would he care about such a small matter? Of course, although Shane Kazrafa said it was a small matter, everyone knew that it wasn't. But they all knew that it wasn't a small matter. They all knew the entanglement within. It wasn't that Demon King Beelzebub didn't care about such a small matter. It was just that it wasn't convenient for him to intervene. But it didn't mean that he couldn't do anything. They were Alpha's vassals. But compared to Beelzebub, Alpha and Beelzebub were completely different. Beelzebub was the supreme great demon king. And Alpha was only a secondary demon king. It seemed like they were only one level apart. But this one level was a gap that could never be made up for. Hundreds of thousands of years ago, there was once when more than 50 secondary demon kings tried to overthrow a great demon king. And the target that they thought could be overthrown was great demon king Beelzebub. More than 50 secondary demon kings and thousands of greater demon overlords gathered an innumerable demon army. Then, great demon king Beelzebub appeared. With just one move, he swallowed all the secondary demon kings and all the greater demon overlords, as well as half of the demon army. That was also the only time that the secondary demon kings in hell were replaced on a large scale. At the same time, it made the other demons understand how big the difference between a secondary demon king and a great demon king was. In hell, no demon dared to disrespect a great demon king. Even a secondary demon king would tremble in fear when facing a great demon king. The dignity of a great demon king wouldn't allow any low-rank demon to offend him. Who's not here? Just then, Langku suddenly looked into the distance. An unfamiliar aura. Is it Lord Alpha's new vassal? Chapter 2600. Of the 36 great demon lords present, Kalang had the sharpest senses. He sensed that, at the edge of the black scarlet land, there was a powerful aura approaching them at an astonishing speed. That aura was very unfamiliar, but also very powerful. Suddenly, Kalang's expression changed. "That's not one of us. I can feel his murderous intent. He's coming for one of us." The expressions of the great lords were very strange. Who among them was he coming for? Since he was coming for one of the great lords, then they must know what was going on here. And he was still coming towards them. Was he courting death? Admittedly, the owner of that aura was very powerful. But there were so many great lords present. None of them were easy to deal with. Judging from the other party's aura, the other party should be about the same as the top experts among them. However, if the other party were to come here alone to cause trouble, it would mean that he was looking down on the group of overlords. "I'll share the other party's aura with you. See for yourselves who knows this guy," Kalang said. At this moment, all of the great lords sensed this aura. Suddenly, Shane Kazlak stood up from the stone chair. A fierce light burst out of his eyes. He remembered this aura. Even if he turned to ashes, he would remember it. Shane Kazlak raised the scarlet token high up. "I want all of you to attack with all your might and bring that guy to me, dead or alive." Although no one submitted to Shane Kazlak. But no one dared to disobey the scarlet token in Shane Kazlak's hand. Kalang glanced at Shane Kazlak and said, "I can't use half of my power here." Shane Kazlak snorted coldly. How could he believe Kalang's words? Kalang was his old enemy. They had fought no less than 1,000 times in 10,000 years. So he knew Kalang's strength like the back of his hand. Within the range of the volcano of despair, Kalang's strength would indeed be affected. However, it was only a small impact. At their level, the environment had very little influence on them. Unable to use half of their strength. Obviously, Kalang didn't want to help him. Previously, Kalang was the first to notice the other party's arrival. That was because he didn't know who the other party was targeting. But after seeing Shane Kazlak's reaction, everyone knew that they were here for Shane Kazlak. Meanwhile, the other party definitely didn't know that so many great lords were here. They only knew that Shane Kazlak was here. At this moment, a great lord whose entire body radiated a multicolored glow said, "The other party is very fast." This greater demon overlord was called the Divine Sense Spirit. It wasn't in a physical form, but a pure spiritual body. Although he could not detect the aura at the edge of the black barren land like Coltrane did. However, within a certain range, he was able to sense all of the other party's movements. "Faster than me." A great lord with a smooth, 3-meter-tall body asked confidently. He was a wind spirit, a creature born from the wind. He was born with the power of the wind. No one at the same level could surpass him in terms of speed. "Let me create some trouble for him." Wind Spirit raised his arm. For a moment, the clouds in the sky surged. Chen Zhao could already see the super volcano hundreds of kilometers away. Without a doubt, the greater demon overlord's nest was that super volcano. However, the volcano was really frighteningly big. Too big. Even from hundreds of kilometers away, he could still see the outline of the volcano. Moreover, there wasn't just one aura there. Other than the familiar Shane Kazlak, there were a few other mixed auras. There was more than one greater demon overlord there. Chen Zhao's expression changed. Should he retreat now? Chen Zhao thought about it. If he retreated now, he'd lose a lot of face. He'd traveled thousands of kilometers to hell, a world away. In the end, he'd run away without even seeing Shane. This was too embarrassing. Chen Zhao thought for half a minute. He finally made up his mind. He was indifferent to life and death. If he wasn't happy, he'd fight. Of course, Chen Zhao didn't know that there weren't just a few, but dozens of greater demon overlords in the volcano of despair. If Chen Zhao knew, he'd definitely turn around and leave. Even so, Chen Zhao didn't plan on charging right at them. Chen Zhao suddenly turned and flew into the sky. Ha! He sensed us. Kolang frowned. He seems to be flying high into the sky. His escape route is really strange. The greater demon lords didn't plan on intercepting him. For one, the distance was too far, and the opponent was a speed type. At this distance, they couldn't catch up at all. Even Wind Spirit, who was most confident in speed, couldn't. Moreover, the opponent was at the same level as them. If they couldn't surround him, they couldn't do anything if he wanted to escape. So, instead of doing that, they might as well save some effort. A strange look flashed across Kolang's eyes. He sensed that the owner of the aura seemed to be flying higher into the sky. He wanted to go outside the void. Could it be that he was panicking and didn't know where he was going? After all, even greater demon lords of their level couldn't adapt to outside the void. Why was he flying outside the void? Kolang was filled with confusion, but he was also wary. It was very unlikely that the opponent was crazy. If he wasn't, he must have some other plan. No matter what, he had to be on guard. Kolang's senses were very far away, but he couldn't sense the exact situation. The spirit of consciousness, on the other hand, had a limited range. As for the other greater demon overlords, their perception range was even more limited. Kolang glanced at Shane Kazlak but didn't remind him of the exact situation. At the same time, Chen Zhao realized that Hell's atmosphere was much thicker than Earth's. Even at a height of 100,000 meters, the air here was still very abundant. However, the cosmic radiation here was much stronger. Chen Zhao continued flying up. He wanted to see how thick Hell's atmosphere was. When they flew to a height of 300,000 meters, the thinness of the air here was equivalent to that of 30,000 meters on Earth. This was about the right place. Chen Zhao planned to use a meteor here. When he was on Demon Island, he'd used an incomplete meteor once. At that time, its power was equivalent to a small nuclear explosion. At this height, he didn't know what the effect would be if he smashed it with full weight. Chen Zhao was eager to try. He activated the third stage of the coalescence technique. Chapter 2601. It took 50 minutes. Chen Zhao finally completed the meteorite. Then, he basically didn't need to do anything else. With the acceleration of gravity, the meteorite would have enough time to gain great kinetic energy before it hit the ground. Of course, Chen Zhao didn't just do nothing. Instead, he used all his strength to pull the meteorite down. This allowed the meteorite to gain more initial kinetic energy. Soon, Chen Zhao realized that he wasn't pulling the meteorite down anymore. Instead, he was being pressed down by the meteorite. The meteorite fell faster and faster. It was already heating up from the friction with the air. The speed of falling seemed to be beyond Chen Zhao's imagination. More accurately, it was out of Chen Zhao's control. What did it mean to fall from 300,000 meters in the sky? The potential energy from the acceleration of gravity was 1,000 times more destructive than something of the same mass falling from 30,000 meters. Plus, the power of Chen Zhao's small world had increased by 10 times. So, the meteorite's weight had also increased by more than 10 times. Chen Zhao cursed inwardly. He immediately used large amounts of gas to form a barrier around him. Chen Zhao wasn't sure if he could withstand such power if it hit the ground. But he had no way out now. Even if he wanted to give up, he couldn't stop. Colin stared at the sky. Suddenly, a meteorite appeared in everyone's vision. What's that? Colin pointed at the meteorite falling from the sky. It's that guy. He didn't escape. Shane Caslak only saw a huge fireball. But he didn't sense the incoming danger. The fireball was indeed huge, but it wasn't enough to make him feel danger. He had the title of Lava Demon to begin with. His resistance to fire had also reached the extreme. After all, he could eat and drink in lava. Of course, his resistance to fire wasn't weak. So, he didn't care too much about the huge fireball. As for the other demon lords, they didn't care too much either. They were stronger than Shane Kazrak, not weaker. Similarly, no one would be afraid of a mere fireball. Even if the fireball was ridiculously huge. Some greater demon overlords cast a defensive barrier on themselves. Some relied on their powerful physical bodies and didn't care about what was falling. Only Coltrane, who had no way of knowing what was falling from the sky. But it definitely wasn't a fireball. After all, he had been paying attention to Qin Zhao in the sky. Qin Zhao had only been in the sky for around 50 minutes, and he had created a fireball to entertain everyone. Stop joking, no one's brain is flooded with water. So, Colin silently used his strongest defense. However, he could not suppress the strong uneasiness in his heart. The falling speed of the fireball seemed to be a little unexpected. At this time, a greater demon overlord revealed a solemn expression. That spell seems very dangerous. No, that's not a fireball. We can't let it continue to fall. We have to stop it. Use the undying barrier. A greater fiend overlord raised an immortal barrier above the volcano. At this moment, the meteor touched the barrier of immortality amidst the rumbling thunder. Wow, the greater fiend overlord spat out a mouthful of blood. Quick, meteor was even faster than the greater demon overlord and instantly fell into the lava pool. All the demon lords covered their eyes. Bang! A sun rose from the Black Land. Even millions of square kilometers away from the Black Land, one could still clearly see that extremely bright ball of light. The light could evaporate ordinary demons directly. Light was the first to be released, followed by a shock wave that began to spread in all directions with the volcano of despair as the center. With the power to destroy the heavens and the earth, it destroyed everything in its path as easily as crushing dry weeds. The first to be hit was naturally the volcano of despair. The peak was destroyed in an instant. Everything was gone in an instant. In the moment of the collision, Qin Zhao was the first to be hit. Qin Zhao's skin kept cracking and blood kept spurting out. Even though Qin Zhao was in his strongest state, even though he'd prepared everything beforehand. But now, Qin Zhao really felt like he was going to die. Under the huge impact, his body's functions were on the verge of collapse. Qin Zhao could not see anything. All his senses had been destroyed too. All that was left was soul-tearing pain. Just then, Qin Zhao felt the nirvana flame ignite in his body. He did not activate it on his own. He was forced to activate the nirvana flame. This meant that Qin Zhao was really close to death. Only when he was close to death would he activate the nirvana flame on his own. This feeling was very special. It was Qin Zhao's first time in this state. The pain disappeared and was replaced by another feeling. His flesh, blood, nerves, skin, and organs were all redistributed and reassembled. Finally, the familiar feeling returned. Qin Zhao suddenly swung his fist and shattered the thing wrapped around him. Qin Zhao opened his eyes again and scanned around him. He realized that he was standing on a broken eggshell. Qin Zhao was speechless. Not only had he learned the phoenix's nirvana flame, but he'd also learned hatching. Qin Zhao knew clearly how long had passed. It should have been around a minute. This meant that Chen Zhao had used a minute to recover from his near-death state to his peak. No, this state was even better than his previous peak state. Chen Zhao glanced at the crater. The volcano of despair was gone. Instead, there was a super crater with a diameter of 3 kilometers. There were also the corpses of demons of various sizes around it. Chen Zhao realized that these corpses were all at the level of a great lord. However, there were still a few demons in the small world. They were not dead. Instead, they were heavily injured. These were all his spoils of war. Chen Zhao grinned. But just then, the ground not far in front of Chen Zhao protruded. A demon burrowed out. The demon did not seem to be injured. Then a white figure descended from the sky. Kolang looked at Chen Zhao. He'd sensed danger just now. Therefore, he decisively flew up into the sky, even though there was a similar impact in the sky. There was also the same impact in the sky, but the impact in the sky was clearly much weaker than on the ground. This also allowed Coltrane to escape death. Just then, a few more great demon lords appeared one after another. Perhaps because of this or that method, they didn't suffer any injuries, or they avoided the disaster with light injuries. Other than the heavily injured and dying lords, there were 8 great demon lords in total. These 8 greater demon overlords still had their full strength. By now, the 8 demon lords had surrounded Chen Zhao. Chapter 2602. Chen Zhao looked around. Lava demon Shane Kazlak was among the 8 demon lords. Chen Zhao was surprised that Shane Kazlak was unharmed. At least apart from his arm being shattered, he wasn't hurt at all. All the demon lords stared at Chen Zhao in shock and anger. He looked around at the black, barren land that was like a plain. The original volcano of despair disappeared, and so did the original mountain range. They were the only ones left. Only them. This kind of terrifying lethality was completely beyond their imagination. Even though they were demon lords, the power to destroy a country in an instant still terrified them. 5 of the greater demon overlords were unharmed, while the other 3 had minor injuries. The other dozen greater demon overlords were already on the verge of death. Some of them were just corpses. As for the others, there was no sign of them. They had been killed by Chen Zhao's meteors without even a speck left. However, the remaining 8 great demon lords clearly had the same hatred for Chen Zhao. After all, if Chen Zhao escaped, he'd be a huge problem in the future. Chen Zhao didn't have to do anything else. All he had to do was shoot at their territory. Their territory would be like Shane Kazlak's, returning to the state before liberation. 8 great demon overlords. Chen Zhao narrowed his eyes. He didn't think that he could face 8 demon lords at the same time. He'd thought that if he used his killer move, he might be able to kill Shane Kazlak and the other demon lords. But he'd underestimated the number of demon lords gathered at the volcano of despair. He'd also underestimated their trump cards. The current situation was very disadvantageous to him. Absolute freeze. Colon attacked first. Instantly, Chen Zhao felt his limbs lose the ability to move. His body was sealed in a block of ice. Chen Zhao even felt that all the cells in his body had lost the ability to move. Colon used his killer move right away. He had to use his full strength now. He'd hidden the truth just now. He'd been monitoring Chen Zhao but hadn't told his companions. If the Lord Alpha were to find out about this, then he'd definitely die without a whole corpse. So, he had to use his full strength now. He could show his attitude and lower his companions' suspicions. Chen Zhao panicked. They were indeed terrifyingly strong. No greater demon overlord could be underestimated. Chen Zhao's eyes widened. The flames of Nirvana. As Nirvana flames burned on Qin Zhao's body, Nirvana flames also burned on the outside, burning the ice inside and outside at the same time. The greatest power of this absolute ice seal did not lie in its low temperature, but in its ability to cause a living being's bodily functions to lose their vitality in an extremely short period of time. However, the Nirvana's flame instantly activated the frozen cells. Qin Zhao quickly regained his mobility and smashed the ice with a punch. Qin Zhao pounced at Kelang. At this moment, Onfanelli launched his attack. Roar! A terrifying sound wave swept toward Qin Zhao. Instantly, Qin Zhao felt dizzy. Blood spurted out of his mouth, nose, and ears. The sound wave left a trench thousands of meters long on the ground. The ditch was as smooth as a mirror. Qin Zhao's skin was being torn apart by the sound wave. Qin Zhao tried his best to stay awake. At the same time, he created hundreds of black balls in the shortest time possible. Go! Bang bang bang, the black ball hit Onfanelli's body. Enduring the pain, Onfanelli temporarily stopped his sonic attack. However, the damage the black ball could do to Onfanelli was extremely limited. The wounds on Qin Zhao's body were also healing quickly. Just then, Qin Zhao felt an unbearably hot pain from his back. Looking back, he saw Shane Kazlak stabbing at him with a huge flaming sword. Qin Zhao immediately dodged Shane's attack. At the same time, he punched the flaming sword away. Just as he was about to punch again, a figure blocked Qin Zhao's way. It was a greater demon lord with muscles all over its body. His limbs were thick and the bulging veins on his skin looked like old tree roots. The demon lord blocked Qin Zhao's fist with his arms. Although he managed to block Qin Zhao's punch, his feet still skidded hundreds of meters on the ground. Qin Zhao was surprised that someone could actually block his punch. However, the muscular demon Greater Lord was similarly shocked. Such terrifying strength. He'd actually lost to Qin Zhao in his area of expertise. Just then, an arrow shot toward Qin Zhao. Qin Zhao actually couldn't dodge the attack. In fact, he didn't even notice the attack before he was hit. From the corner of his eyes, Qin Zhao glanced at a tall and slender demon lord not far away. The demon lord's movements were quick and sharp. He held a curved bow in his hand. The arrow he shot didn't have any trajectory or aura. Qin Zhao could only determine the arrow's trajectory based on the direction the demon lord pulled the bow. However, when Qin Zhao dodged again, he found himself hit by another arrow. Troublesome, really, really troublesome. None of the 8 demon lords were easy to deal with. Moreover, the 8 demon lords had teamed up. This made Qin Zhao suffer even more. He couldn't continue like this. He had to end the battle quickly or think of a way to escape. Now, the 8 demon lords didn't continue chasing. Instead, they repositioned themselves. They clearly planned to slowly exhaust Qin Zhao to death. This was a very good tactic. This could prevent Qin Zhao from fighting them to the death. Right now, Qin Zhao also needed to regroup. The enemy's temporary retreat gave him a chance to catch his breath. Suddenly, Qin Zhao realized that there were still remnants of the demon lord's power in the air. The owners of this power were all the demon lords that Qin Zhao had killed earlier. They hadn't completely dispersed. Instead, they lingered nearby. Qin Zhao realized that his small world could absorb this power much more easily than before. Glancing at the 8 demon lords, Qin Zhao absorbed the power without batting an eyelid. After a short period of recuperation, the 8 greater demon overlords attacked once more. However, this time, Qin Zhao wasn't in a hurry to succeed. Instead, he focused all his attention on dodging their attacks. The saying that a prolonged defense would lead to a loss was also useful for Chen Zhao. Before long, Chen Zhao was hit consecutively. However, Chen Zhao didn't fight back because of this. Instead, he patiently stalled for time. These attacks weren't weak, but they weren't fatal. Chen Zhao needed time to absorb the remaining power of the demon lords in the air. His small world was growing silently. The 8 demon lords didn't notice anything different. They were still working together to attack Chen Zhao. 9 Heavens Divine Emperor. Chapter 2603. Right now, Chen Zhao looked like a cornered beast. Chen Zhao could dodge one attack from the 8 demon lords, but he couldn't dodge the other one. Plus, he'd used the life force he'd used to put himself on the brink of death with Meteor. In this battle, he'd used at least 1/10 of his total life force. One had to admit that the 8 demon lord strategy was very effective. They didn't need to use much energy at all. They could just trap Chen Zhao here until he died. The process was slightly longer, but they had time. At the moment, Chen Zhao was even calmer than them. The enormous power was evaporating in the air. Chen Zhao couldn't stop it. However, he needed to use time to absorb it. The power was the best nutrient. He didn't even have to break it down. Chen Zhao could let the small world absorb the power faster and more easily. Then, it would turn into nutrients for the small world. Finally, all the power dissipating in the air was absorbed by Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao felt that his small world had tripled from its current foundation. What did tripling mean? It was about 30 times stronger than his original state. The diameter of the small world had reached 1,500 meters. It was time to counterattack. In an instant, Chen Zhao condensed tens of thousands of black balls in the small world. All of the greater demon lords were stunned. The next moment, tens of thousands of black balls shot toward the 8 demon lords from all directions. After all, not every greater demon overlord had powerful defenses. The tens of thousands of black balls were terrifyingly destructive. Chen Zhao even felt that the small world's power surpassed his own. Moreover, Chen Zhao's attacks were limited. However, the small world's attacks were freer and more convenient. The 8 demon lords hurriedly put up their magic shields or dodged Chen Zhao's attacks. Although the number of black balls was shocking, their individual attacks were still limited. They were all targeting the demon lords. So, the effect was still limited. It could hurt some of them. But it would only hurt them. It couldn't even hurt them heavily. However, the greatest use of this move wasn't to injure or kill the demon lords. If they were really so easy to kill, then Chen Zhao wouldn't have been in such a sorry state earlier. Chen Zhao's goal was only to stop their attacks and disrupt their formation. A white dwarf 10,000 times bigger than a normal black ball condensed around Chen Zhao. 2, 3, a total of 8 white dwarfs. With a wave of his hand, 8 white dwarfs shot toward the 8 demon lords. What followed was a terrifying explosion. At the same time, Chen Zhao also moved. He turned into a beam of white light and went straight for Shane Kazlak. Shane Kazlak had just used his flaming greatsword to cut open the white dwarf. The impact of the white dwarf also covered Shane Kazlak in an instant. The terrifying impact almost tore Shane Kazlak's skin apart. The next moment, Chen Zhao appeared before Shane Kazlak. Chen Zhao was too fast, so fast that Shane Kazlak couldn't defend in time. Chen Zhao grabbed Shane Kazlak's flaming sword. Clang! Chen Zhao broke the flaming sword. Chen Zhao raised the broken blade of the flaming greatsword and slashed at Shane Kazlak. Crash! Before the blade could touch Shane Kazlak, his body suddenly turned into magma. Huge waves surged toward Chen Zhao. By then, the other demon lords had already dealt with their own problems and all reached out to help. Chen Zhao could only retreat for now, sighing inwardly. As expected, none of the demon lords were easy to deal with. It was almost impossible to catch them off guard and kill any one of them in the shortest amount of time. Just then, Chen Zhao suddenly remembered that his dark magma had merged with magma before. He wondered if Shane Kazlak's magma could absorb it. The thought only flashed through his mind before Chen Zhao made a decision. In an instant, the dark magma directly covered the magma that Shane Kazlak had transformed into. 3 arrows shot toward him from behind. Chen Zhao didn't even look back, allowing them to hit him. Damn it, what is this? Shane Kazlak panicked. Shane Kazlak could feel his body dissolving bit by bit. He felt as if someone had stuffed him into a stomach bag. Actually, his feeling wasn't wrong. Chen Zhao had a lot of experience in devouring enemies. Especially after his bloodline had completely merged, the dark magma also had the abilities of a glutton. In the past, the dark magma had devoured a lot of dark and depraved powers, so it was mostly black. But now, the dark magma started turning from speckles of red to a large area of red. Originally, it was mainly of the dark element, but after devouring Shane Kazlak, it started turning into the fire element. Chen Zhao directly put the dark magma back into his body. What flowed under his skin had turned into magma. Chen Zhao also realized that this new power in his body was especially compatible with the Nirvana flames. Absolute freeze. While Chen Zhao was still standing, Colin gave Chen Zhao an absolute freeze from behind. But this time, although Chen Zhao was frozen, he wasn't frozen like the first time. Chen Zhao moved his limbs and casually shattered the absolute freeze with a punch. Colin's expression changed because he felt the scorching aura from Chen Zhao's body. It was the aura he hated the most, just like Shane Kazlak's. Just then, Chen Zhao felt danger. The archer had inadvertently set up a magic array. Chen Zhao wasn't unfamiliar with this. Seal. Without thinking, Chen Zhao turned into a stream of light. Back then, when he'd faced Leviathan Abaran Tajimis, he'd almost sealed Chen Zhao as a mere lord of the demons. If it was this time, there were so many lords. Once the seal was activated, Chen Zhao wouldn't have any chance to turn the tables. So, Chen Zhao definitely wouldn't give them the chance. Stop him. Hurry. Don't let him leave my magic array. The bow-wielding Great Lord bellowed. The Strength-type Demon Lord stood in front of Chen Zhao. Don't even think about going anywhere. The Strength-type Demon Lord roared, lowering his fists. But this time, Chen Zhao didn't choose to fight head-on. Instead, he took out the black trident the moment the Strength-type Demon Lord came into contact with him. The Strength-type Demon Lord raised his fist and smashed it at Chen Zhao. He clearly didn't realize that danger was approaching. Chen Zhao directly stabbed the black trident into the body of the Strength-type Demon Lord. The Demon Lord's eyes widened and he stared at the black trident in his chest in shock. Before he could react, Chen Zhao had already punched and crushed his head. He grabbed the body of the Strength-type Demon Lord and stuffed it into his spatial ring. The remaining 6 Demon Lords were all enraged. Chapter 2604. They didn't understand how Chen had done it. He had killed a greater demon lord in an instant. But this made them feel a strong sense of danger. Chen didn't plan to stay any longer. Even though he had devoured Shane Kazlak through the dark lava. Moreover, Shifeng had caught the demon lord off guard and killed the demon lord. But there were still 6 greater demon lords here. Every one of them was terrifyingly powerful. He could kill 2 in a row, but that didn't mean he still had a chance. Plus, if he continued to stay, he might not even be able to kill a single one. Instead, he would be killed. If it was a one-on-one, Chen was confident that he could kill any one of them. But they wouldn't give him such a chance. Even with the Black Trident, it would be difficult for Chen to have the same opportunity. The Black Trident would make them wary. But at the same time, it would make them greedy. Chen wouldn't give them such a chance. Chen glanced at his surroundings. The small world swept up the heavily injured and the corpses of the greater demon lords and ran away without any warning. The remaining 6 greater demon overlords looked at each other in confusion. None of them chased after Chen. After thinking for a while, they realized that it wasn't Chen who had killed the greater demon lord in an instant. It was the Black Trident in Chen's hand. That thing was indeed a supreme treasure. But it would probably be a death sentence. Plus, Chen wasn't a kind person. He would wait for them to kill him. This was an enemy even more ferocious than they were. None of them had the confidence to kill Chen. Plus, they didn't trust each other enough. Actually, if they had been willing to give up everything and cooperate with Chen wouldn't have been able to escape now. It was because they were wary and suspicious of each other. That was why Chen had the chance to counterattack and even break through their alliance. Chen didn't swagger away. Instead, he hid his aura and headed toward Obsidian City. This place was very far from Obsidian City. Along the way, Chen first killed the few dying demons and stored their corpses in his spatial ring. Otherwise, it wouldn't be convenient. After flying for a full 4 hours, Chen finally approached Obsidian City. Just then, he saw a huge figure appear in the distance. Chen immediately returned from his energy form to his physical form. Iris. Chen, it's you. Iris thought that it was an enemy. She could only sense a terrifying aura approaching, but she was unable to identify the other party. Now, she and Beelzebub Sophie were already frightened by the mere twang of a bow. Although they had just won a match not too long ago. They occupied the territories of the 3-headed devil and the red eagle, as well as a large amount of resources. But this also caused the wrath of their enemy, King Alpha. Although the 2 of them were considered to be at the peak of the greater demon overlords, they were still inferior to the demon overlords. But it was impossible to resist the Alpha Demon King. The 30+ greater demon overlords under him could easily slaughter them. Iris, let me rest in the castle for a while, Chen said. Although he was in a good state now, the previous high-intensity battle still made his mind tense, and his body was not very comfortable. Iris nodded. Get on my back. Iris brought Chen into Obsidian Castle. Who summoned you? You seem to have just been through a battle. Where's Sophie? Some unfamiliar demons are approaching the border of our territory, Iris said. Sophie went to check the situation. She was the only one guarding Obsidian Castle now. This was why she was so nervous earlier. What's wrong with you? Chen took out his spoils of war, the corpses of greater demon overlords. Big ones, small ones, all of different shapes. Iris was shocked and took 2 steps back. Her eyes were filled with horror. I came to hell to find a greater demon overlord to solve some personal problems, but I accidentally barged into their gathering. After a fight, I killed a few and escaped. This is Shane Kazlak's Balrog sword. This is the Helmet of the Dead. It's from the Nether Tower. This is Morgate's head. You. How many greater demon overlords did you kill? I don't know the exact number, but my victory was very unexpected. In fact, they gathered together and didn't stop me from releasing my ultimate skill. That's why I succeeded. Chen was very sure that if they had stopped him from releasing his ultimate skill, the best outcome would have been for Chen to run away with his tail between his legs. Suddenly, Iris picked up a red token. Her expression changed drastically again. This is Demon King Alpha's Crimson Token. Iris thought that she had already seen a lot of things. But at this moment, she really felt a chill. It could be said that she had watched Chen grow up step by step. She had never thought that one day, Chen would grow to where he was today. Perhaps Chen wasn't powerful enough for her to look up to. But Chen's results were definitely enough to shock her. What's this thing for? Wait, I'll tell Sophie to come back, Iris said solemnly. When Sophie discovered the signal sent by Iris, he thought that there was an enemy invasion in his territory. After all, he and Iris had agreed to use the signal only if there was a catastrophic problem in his territory. However, when Sophie returned, he found that Obsidian City was peaceful. There didn't seem to be any signs of war. Moreover, Iris's aura didn't seem to be in any danger. Beelzebub Sophie returned to Obsidian Castle. He immediately noticed that Chen was beside Iris. Chen, why are you here? Sophie, take a look at this. Iris handed the crimson token to Beelzebub Sophie. In an instant, Beelzebub Sophie's eyes were filled with shock and doubt. What the hell is going on? My spoils of war, one of them. I want to know what exactly happened. The more details, the better. Jen told Iris and Beelzebub Sophie everything that had happened. Apart from hiding the identity of the handsome guy who had summoned him and some details of the battle, he didn't hide anything else. However, after Beelzebub Sophie and Iris heard Chen's statement, their expressions froze. You're saying that you killed nearly 30 greater demon lords. Actually, there were only 2 who were truly killed. Chapter 2605. Chen Zhao was confident, but he wasn't arrogant yet. Although Shi Feng had killed nearly 30 greater demon overlords, the demon overlords were still far stronger than the demon overlords. But in reality, he'd only killed 2 in a head-on battle. Meteorite was his trump card, but it wasn't his true combat power. Moreover, the requirements to use meteorite were too strict. Beelzebub Sophie played with the red token. Even though he was just listening to Qin Zhao's description. Both the husband and wife were shaken to the core. It was hard to imagine that he'd fought 8 demon lords. Not only that, but he also killed 2 of them and escaped safely with the spoils of war. How difficult would it be? I have use for this red token, Sophie said. I'll use the wealth of almost 30 demon lords to exchange for it. Wait. Are you mistaken? I killed those greater demon overlords, and you're using their wealth to exchange for my spoils of war. You killed them, but how are you going to get their wealth? You can't even find their territory, let alone their wealth. Their wealth won't automatically become yours just because you killed their master, but I can. What's this red token for? Chen Zhao asked. Using the wealth of 30 demon lords to exchange for this red token. This could only mean that the value of this crimson token was much higher than the wealth of 30 greater demon overlords. So, Chen Zhao was very curious about the value of this token. This is the token of the secondary demon king I'm going to deal with. It also contains his power. As long as I have this token, his subordinates won't be able to attack me unless I attack them first. And the secondary demon king isn't allowed to attack you directly, so you'll be undefeatable, right? Chen Zhao immediately understood Sophie's intentions. Not only that, I can also study that secondary demon king's power. I can even absorb it and find a better way to counter him. Sophie had to admit that Chen Zhao had given him too many surprises. How difficult would it be to defeat and replace a secondary demon king? That was almost impossible to succeed. Perhaps Sophie's subconscious thought was that he couldn't succeed. He thought that he couldn't succeed. Ambition had driven him to this step, but it didn't mean that he believed he could do it. He was not the first demon lord to attempt to replace the lesser demon king. However, in the past tens of thousands of years, only one greater demon overlord had successfully become a lesser demon king. Beelzebub Zophie even felt that he was just one of the many losers who kept failing. He had even made up his mind. But Qin Zhao had given him hope of turning the tables. Before he could face the lesser demon king, there was still an insurmountable mountain. They were the 30 or so greater demon overlords under the lesser demon king. As long as these 30+ greater demon overlords existed, the demon overlords would not be able to escape. Then he would never be able to face the lesser demon king. It seemed that the situation he was facing was despair. There was no way he could fight against the alliance of more than 30 greater demon lords. Unless these 30+ greater demon overlords were willing to send them off one by one. Was that even possible? Impossible, no one was a fool. However, Qin Zhao's appearance this time had directly destroyed the alliance of more than 30 demon lords under the secondary demon king's command. Moreover, he even brought him a crimson token. This red token turned Beelzebub Zophie from a passive situation to an active one. Due to the restrictions of the rules, the lesser demon king could not directly attack Beelzebub Zophie. Moreover, because of Qin Zhao's massacre, only a single digit remained of the 30 greater demon lords. This greatly weakened the lesser demon king's power. The level of a lesser demon king's power was related to the number of greater demon lords under him. Moreover, the remaining greater demon lords could not directly attack Beelzebub Zophie with the crimson token. This meant that as long as Beelzebub Zophie was willing, he could choose to attack at any time. Of course, the crimson token could only maintain a situation where he would not be defeated. It was not a hope of victory. He had to face a lesser demon king. A crimson token was far from being able to change the outcome. Of course, even so, it was still enough to make Beelzebub Zophie excited. Oh, your alchemist subordinate already has results. I was going to summon you a few days ago, but you came yourself. Take me to see his results. Felt Nightake knew about Qin Zhao's arrival. At the entrance of his alchemy lab, he waited respectfully for Qin Zhao's arrival. When he saw Qin Zhao, he walked quickly and knelt on one knee to welcome Qin Zhao. Great Master, thank you for coming. If a normal person spoke to Qin Zhao like this and knelt on one knee, Qin Zhao would only think that there was something wrong with this person. However, this was hell and Felt Nightake was a demon. Everything was as it should be. I heard that you've already made the magic potion I needed. Yes. I've completed the divine power potion. Please forgive me for naming it on my own. Divine power potion. Does it really have such an effect? Please follow me. Felt Nightake brought Qin Zhao into the lab. There was a crystal container with a diameter of 2 meters and a height of 3 meters. The crystal container was filled with colorful liquid, like melted glass slowly flowing in the container. The colors were so bright that Qin Zhao was dazzled. Don't tell me this is the divine power potion you were talking about. Yes, Master. This is the divine power potion. How do I drink it? How much does it work? Master, it's actually not for drinking, Felt Nightake said. It's for soaking. Soak your body in the divine power potion and let the power contained in the potion seep into your body, said Felt Nightake. How much can it increase my power? Master, this divine power potion can't increase your power. Are you kidding me? Master, the divine power potion's true function is to improve your power, starting from the most basic power to the most advanced strengthening spell you've mastered. If you can use all your power perfectly, this divine power potion will be useless to you. If there's even the slightest flaw in your power magic system, the divine power potion will help you understand and perfect it. Divine King of the Nine Heavens. Chapter 2606. Just soak it. You just need to soak it. Of course, you can also drink it, but it doesn't taste very good. Moreover, it can be used repeatedly after a certain period of time. If you drink it, it can only be used once. Can I take it away directly? Chen Zhao asked. Of course. In fact, Fate Nitak had created this container for the sake of beauty and convenience. Other than making the divine power potion, Chen Zhao had to be perfect in other aspects. After taking the divine power potion, Chen Zhao bid farewell to Beelzebub, Sophie and Iris. His time in hell had come to an end. Chen Zhao also brought some local specialties from hell back. When he returned to the human world, Chen Zhao received a call from Alex. Chen, where have you been these past 2 days? You weren't in the service area when I called you. I called Fei Lai and she said you had something urgent, but she didn't tell me where you went. I thought you were kidnapped. Before going to hell, Chen Zhao had only told Fei Lai. Chen Zhao was about to explain when Alex interrupted him. But Alex interrupted him again. Forget it. But even if you're kidnapped, please let the kidnappers go or deal with it yourself. I have too many things on my hands right now. I don't have time to deal with such a small matter. Chen Zhao nodded. Is it a small matter to you that I was kidnapped? Everyone's time is precious. Are you willing to spend it on kidnappers? Or use it to make money? Fine. Compared to money, kidnapping is indeed a small matter. Chen Zhao shrugged. Why are you looking for me? It's about the contract between you and Miss Jane Fankel. We've mostly settled it. Now, we just need your signature. What time? It's best if it's now. Now? Don't you want to reschedule? I've already said that my time is precious. Your time is precious as well. Her time is just as precious. Fine. Now, give me the address. Drive a good car to pick me up. I'll go with you. Oh, you have to change. Chen Zhao returned home. After changing, he drove a luxury car. Chen Zhao didn't really like driving his new Rolls-Royce Phantom. However, this car was indeed very suitable for decoration. Compared to a flashy supercar, a sedan was more suitable for a formal occasion. He'd gotten the latest Rolls-Royce Phantom not long ago. It was a gift from Amira. When Chen Zhao arrived at Alex's law firm, she even found one of her subordinates to be their driver for the time being. In Alex's words, people of their status needed a full-time chauffeur. Especially in formal occasions, the status of those who drove themselves would drop by a notch. This had nothing to do with wealth, but a matter of style. Chen Zhao didn't mind, but he still respected Alex's suggestion. Sitting in the back seat, Alex handed him a document. This is Madame Jane Fankel's message. Take a look. Is she only 45? Chen Zhao asked, confused. He had thought that Lady Jane Arunkel would be a little older than him. Yes, is there a problem? Didn't you say that when she was in the 90s, she launched the biggest merger of the last century? At that time, she was not even 20 years old, right? To be precise, she's 19. Chen Zhao gasped. 19. What was he still doing? Spending all night in internet cafes with his roommates. She was already a force to be reckoned with in the financial market. She was the youngest recipient of a master's degree from Yale University's Department of Finance. At the age of 16, she began to get involved in the family business. At the age of 18, she officially took over the Caribbean Empire cruise line. At the age of 19, she reached the most glorious moment of her career. Although nothing similar happened in the following 20 years, the Caribbean Empire cruise line successfully became the world's #1 cruise line in her hands. The car drove into a luxurious manor. Along the way, there were many well-equipped men in black. This doesn't look like a rich manor. It looks more like a mafia family's nest, right? Alex seemed to know what Chen Zhao was going to say. What's her background? The Marx family, from Italy. Almost all the information about her that's circulated around the world has concealed her surname. Her full name should be Jane Fankel Marx. After the car stopped, a man in black walked up to open the door for Chen Zhao. Are you sure that Madame Jane Arunkel won't resort to other means to sign an unfair contract with us? It's an era where capital rules. If she still does business the way her family did in the past, she wouldn't have been able to develop Caribbean Empire Cruise Line to its current scale. Alex had interacted with all kinds of people, so she knew this very well. Every industry had its own rules. It seemed like the mafia was very scary. However, if they tried to clear their names, they would follow the rules more than others once they chose to enter a certain industry. Because they needed to clear their names, they couldn't use the same methods as before. This was their choice. Chen Zhao finally met Jane Fankel. Perhaps it was because of her meticulous makeup and matching of her clothes, Jane Fankel looked younger than in her photos. Hello, Mr. Chen. Jane Fankel extended her hand with a smile. Hello, Miss Fankel. Welcome. Please come in. The two entered the living room with Jane Fankel's invitation. It looked like a scene from The Godfather that Chen Zhao had seen before. It had a very European style of decoration and solid wood furniture. After the two sat down, Alex spoke. Miss Fankel, shall we go straight to the topic? Of course, Mr. Chen. Is that okay? Jane Fankel nodded, but then she looked at Chen Zhao. Meeting Jane Fankel's gaze, Chen Zhao said, My history is more like winning the lottery. I don't know anything about finance, so I leave most of my business to professionals. Alex is one of the most professional people. Of course, we all know how smart and capable Alex is, but this also has to do with Mr. Chen's trust. You flatter me, Chen Zhao said, smiling. Jane Fankel waved her finger behind her. One of her subordinates passed a bound document to Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao, on the other hand, pushed it in front of Alex. Divine King of the Nine Heavens. Chapter 2607. It wasn't Alex's first time reading a contract. However, she still read it very seriously. However, after looking at it for a moment, Alex frowned. Miss Fankel, did you take the wrong contract? Stunned, Jane Fankel asked, What's wrong? This contract is different from what we agreed on. It's also not the source document I saw the other day. Jane Fankel furrowed her brows. Help me point out what's different. Take a look. Here, and these 3 places. If my boss signs this contract, then my boss won't be selling the shares to you. He'll be giving you the shares and paying you $2 billion. Alex's expression was also very ugly. After all, she'd just promised that the other party wouldn't be so unruly. In the blink of an eye, she'd encountered such an unruly situation. After Jane Fankel made sure the contract wasn't the same as the one she had read before, her face turned pale. I'm very sorry, Mr. Chen, Ms. Alex. This is due to my negligence. I took the wrong contract. I'll give the original contract to Mr. Chen as soon as possible. At the same time, we'll increase the price by 5%. What do you think, Mr. Chen? Chen Zhao looked at Alex to see what her plan was. All right then, but I hope there won't be such a mistake next time. Chen Zhao and Alex stood up and prepared to leave. But just then, the black-clothed man at the door crossed his arms and blocked Alex and Chen Zhao's way. Chen Zhao turned around and looked at Jane Fankel. Miss Fankel, can you explain what this means? Jane Fankel's shocked face was also tinged with anger. AMU, Tansk, what are you doing? Just then, AMU, who had slick back hair, said, Miss, we're now under Mr. Caesar's orders. Sorry. Caesar. You're under him. What can he give you? Jane Fankel was both shocked and furious. Caesar. Her useless brother. If he was even a little bit capable, he wouldn't have made her his heir. Mr. Max agreed yesterday that Mr. Caesar will be his successor, and at the same time, he will hand over all power to Mr. Caesar. In other words, from then on, all of us will automatically be loyal to Mr. Caesar. Impossible. How could father make such a decision? Jan Fankel's face was filled with disbelief. By now, Chen Zhao was getting impatient. He looked at Jane Fankel. I don't care about your family ethics. We just want to get out of here. I'm sorry, Mr. Chen. First, you need to sign this contract before you can leave. The lawyer who had been standing behind Jane Fankel suddenly spoke. What if I don't? Chen Zhao asked calmly. Then I'm afraid you won't be able to leave here today. Just then, AMU and Tansk pointed their guns at the back of Chen Zhao's head. Chen Zhao glanced at Alex from the corner of his eye. She nodded secretly. The two of them seemed to be communicating something. What? Chen Zhao sneered. Pointing a gun at your partner's head is how you cooperate. Jane Fankel was trembling with rage. She had been in the industry for almost 30 years. She had never been humiliated like this before. But this time, she didn't even have a chance to retort. She wasn't angry at Chen Zhao's accusations and humiliation. She was angry at her own brother for doing such a despicable thing. If today's incident got out, then she and the business empire that she had built would be destroyed in a day. The bigger a company was, the more they cared about their reputation. Pointing a gun at someone's head and forcing them to sign a contract. This was unforgivable at any time. What would the regular tourists think? What would the shareholders of the company think? Chandler. Did you change the contract too? Boss, I'm sorry, Chandler said calmly. Mr. Max also arranged for me to stay with you. Chen Zhao looked at Alex. Is that enough? Yes. Alex took out a portable recorder. That's enough to prove that you were acting in self-defense. AMU and Tansk suddenly realized that Chen Zhao had disappeared before them. The next moment, AMU felt a heavy kick on his back. Then he flew into the air. He didn't die, but Chen Zhao had broken his spine. Lying on the ground, his body was twisted. His upper body kept struggling, but his lower body didn't move at all. Startled, Tansk suddenly raised his gun and turned. But before he could aim at Chen Zhao had already broken Tansk's wrist with one hand. Then he pointed the gun at Tansk's shoulder. Bang, 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 ah! Alex closed her eyes and turned around. Please don't make it too bloody. The suit I'm wearing costs $30,000. Chen Zhao didn't make it too bloody. He didn't even kill anyone. After all, his suit was expensive too. It was inconvenient to move around in a suit. Casual clothes were more comfortable. Miss Fankel, you've ruined my rare chance to wear a suit. At this moment, the men in black who were scattered around the manor ran over after hearing the gunshots. Jane Fankel walked to the door with a furious expression. Put away your guns. Mr. Chen, I'll give you an explanation. Jane Fankel didn't have the face to talk about cooperation anymore. If she couldn't give Chen Zhao a satisfactory answer, their family's huge business empire would also sink into oblivion. Jane Fankel stood at the door and looked at the men in black who hadn't put down their guns. You better know what you're doing. If you put down your guns now, I'll pretend this never happened. But if you reject my good intentions, you better think about your wives and children. Jane Fankel was born in a mafia family. Her father was a godfather. She'd been influenced by some things since she was young. She wasn't a White Lotus. She'd seen more bloodshed than even a soldier who'd been to the battlefield. What my father and brother can give you, I can also give you, and more. Jane Fankel had controlled the Caribbean Empire cruise line for more than 20 years. She was not someone who could be dismissed just because of the title of godfather. If she wanted to, she could directly starve her family. This wasn't a joke. And this time, she wasn't joking either. She was really angry. Chapter 2608. The men in black lowered their guns one after another. Once there was a first, there would be a second. Even these people would follow blindly. Some of them were Jane Fankel's trusted followers. Thus, they were the first to lower their guns. Mr. Chin, please give me 3 days. Sure. If you can give me a satisfactory answer in 3 days, we'll continue working together. Then, Chen Zhao and Alex drove away. In the car, Chen Zhao asked, Alex, do you think she directed it herself? Alex shook her head. She wouldn't gamble with her company's reputation. After a pause, Alex added, I thought you'd kill someone. I've always been a pacifist. Alex glanced at Chen Zhao in disdain. After returning home, Portia stayed at home to take care of the kids. However, Chen Zhao realized that his long-absent assistant, Zephyra, was also there. Zephyra, you're back. When did you come back? Boss, Zephyra greeted Chen Zhao with a smile. Zephyra, did you go on a mission in the past few days? Portia was very curious about Zephyra's deeds. You definitely don't want to know the whole process. Zephyra still had a faint smile on her face. Did you kill someone? Zephyra hesitated. She glanced at Chen Zhao silently and then nodded. Wow. Impressive. Portia's passion had been ignited. After all, she had a normal life and desired to live a life beyond that. Her mind automatically filled in the gaps of Zephyra's passionate life. No matter what kind of bloody storm Zephyra was facing outside, he did not care. Here, Zephyra was just an ordinary girl. Hardworking and approachable. After lunch, Zephyra sat by the lake and dipped her bare feet into the water. Unlike the turbulent life outside, the life here made her feel peaceful and tranquil. Chen Zhao brought a glass of juice to Zephyra. Is it resolved? Zephyra hesitated for a moment and then shook her head. What's the situation this time? An extremely ferocious demonic dragon has massacred more than 10 human villages. He's extremely cunning. There's no pattern to the targets he chooses. He chooses them completely randomly, and they're very far away from each other. After he finishes massacring a village, he immediately leaves. My team members and I have been hunting him for a few months, and we've only encountered him once. Even if he has absolute strength, he won't come into direct contact with us. His footprints are all over the 5 continents. His actions should have angered the entire spirit world, right? This situation is no longer a dragon slayer's task. Are you willing to help? I really want to, but he didn't enter my territory, Chen Zhao said. In the spirit world, those who have the strength to do so all have the same thoughts as you. Only a few hot-headed spiritualists fantasized about the great cause of slaying dragons and gathered together to fight against the demonic dragon. They heavily injured the demonic dragon, while their entire army was annihilated. We, the dragon slayers, weren't able to make it in time for that battle. Chen Zhao could hear the complaint in Refra's voice. It seemed to be very dissatisfied with a master like Chen Zhao. He clearly had the ability to solve the problem, but he just stood by. Forget it. This is the last time I think that I've already quit the dragon slayers. If it's your request, I can help you once, Chen Zhao said. Refra lowered her head and thought for a long time. Are you really willing to help? Yes. Please help me destroy that demonic dragon. Sure. Tell me the demonic dragon's whereabouts. I'll pay close attention to it. As soon as I get accurate information, I'll tell you immediately. Okay. Also, can you bring me with you? I want to kill that demonic dragon with my own hands. Other than hatred and honor, is there any other reason? For us dragon slayers, there are some things that we can never erase, such as the dragon slayer mark. Refra lifted a dragon tattoo on her arm. It exuded the aura of the dragon race. It was very faint, but it was real. Every dragon slayer is actually a descendant of the dragon race. It's just that it's almost impossible for us to activate the dragon race's bloodline. However, we can temporarily borrow the power of the dragon race by bathing in dragon blood. Zephyr rolled down her sleeves. If the conditions allow, I can agree to it. Refra had quit the Dragon Slayer organization, but it wasn't difficult for her to obtain information about the Dragon Slayers. After all, a lot of information was shared among the Dragon Slayers. Even though she had left the Dragon Slayer organization, she could still obtain the corresponding information through her former companions. But I don't believe there's such a crazy dragon, Chen Zhao said. From his actions, he's an extremely calm dragon. He doesn't only know how to kill. Killing for the sake of killing isn't in line with human nature. Human nature didn't just refer to a person's personality. It was the nature of all intelligent races. If the other was a violent dragon who didn't know how to think, he might only kill to satisfy his desires. But he was a dragon who could escape from the dragon slayers and the entire spiritual world many times. He didn't seem like an idiot who did things recklessly. I think he definitely has his own goal, but he hasn't revealed it yet. We've suspected that he has other goals, but we haven't found out yet. Chen Zhao rubbed his chin and thought for a long time. His purpose in doing this is completely like the action of a lunatic. However, he is not a lunatic. His seemingly clueless actions might be because he has put his purpose out in the open, but it has been ignored by everyone. Zephyr frowned. On the surface. You mean, his goal is to provoke the entire spiritual world? That's the only possibility I can think of. What's in it for him? Does he want to die? Maybe. I'm not a smart person either. These are just my guesses. Chen Zhao had limited information, so his guesses were also very limited. But he still believed that this wasn't an irrational killing. Chen Zhao still had the perspective of profit. The smarter a person was, the less they would do irrational things. If the other party was a giant dragon above the dragon clan, then he would definitely choose a more reliable method. If they wanted to overthrow the rule of the humans, it was far from enough to just rely on killing. At least, normal killing couldn't overthrow the rule of humans. Chapter 2609. The Marx family originated from Sicily. They immigrated to the United States in the 1920s. Then, they took root here and made their first fortune by relying on the bloody accumulation of primitive blood. Prohibition in the United States gave them a chance to rise. In fact, most of the reason why the American mafia was rampant today was because of the prohibition. Most of the mafia relied on Z's private alcoholic beverages to rise to power. In the era of prohibition, it was also the era when the mafia was at its most rampant. How rampant were they? They shot the judge in front of the court in broad daylight. The gunman was not punished. Instead, he sent a letter to the judge. He regarded it as a glorious achievement. If the current American politics was controlled by the capitalists, then the American political system was dominated by capitalists. In the past, the American politics was controlled by the mafia. although the United States had cleaned up the chaos several times. Even today, the mafia problem in the United States had not been solved. Because the mafia was deeply rooted in society. Of course, in the 1960s and 1970s, there were a group of clear-headed families. There were also a group of clear-headed families who knew that this path could not be walked to the end. These families worked hard to clean up their families. That was the case with the Marx family. It was under this situation that Jane Fankel's father took over the family. But he was limited by the vision and reputation of the previous generation. So, Jane Fankel's father did not achieve much. But he had laid a very good foundation for Jane Funkel. Jane Fankel was the representative of the mafia descendants in the new era. Father, I want to know why. I've already brought the family out of the swamp, but your decision has plunged the family back into the swamp. If you can't give me a satisfactory answer, I might very well correct your mistake myself. Jane Fankel tried her best to speak calmly and slowly. But her suppressed anger and confusion could still be heard in her voice. Old Marx was silent for a while on the other end of the phone. Then, he said in a deep voice, I am just correcting the mistakes of the past. Mistakes? What mistakes? We are the mafia. We are born to walk in the dark, not fantasize about how to dance in the sun. Jane Fankel couldn't believe that her father would say such a thing. Back then, he stood his ground and led the family to give up those shameful businesses. Old Marx was dedicated to cleaning up the family's reputation. Why would he say such a thing? Do you know what you are talking about? Jane Fankel's face turned gloomy. Of course I know what I'm talking about, but what about you? Do you know who you're talking to? Or do you think you can talk to your father like this just because you've made some achievements? All right, I'm sorry, father. I was wrong. Jane Fankel's tone grew colder and colder. In the next instant, her tone changed and she suddenly said, This should be the last time I call you father. You want to sever ties with me? Who gave you the courage to make such a stupid decision? I don't want to sever ties with you, I want to sever ties with my family. Now, I want you to apologize immediately. Sorry, Mr. Marx, I refuse your request. Fankel, you've made a stupid decision. Old Max's tone turned cold. No, you made a stupid decision. Looks like I need to let you know how stupid your decision is, Old Max said coldly. Looks like we have a big disagreement. Then our communication ends here. Jane Fankel hung up the phone and turned to a tall man with paint on his face. I'll leave the rest to you. They were now outside the headquarters of the Marx family. Behind Jane Fankel and Ayer was a group of fully armed mercenaries. Jane Fankel had spent a lot of money to hire them. Jane Fankel handed Ayer 2 photos. These 2, I want you to ensure their safety. The 2 people in the photos were her father, Old Max, and her younger brother, Caesar Max. She planned to use her power to destroy the Marx family. She would play the role of the family gravedigger. At the same time, she would use her power to teach her father and her brother a lesson. What was the power of capital? In the face of the power of capital, all the glory and prestige of the family in the past would become worthless. There were about 100 people in this mercenary legion, and they were not just individually strong. They also had the most advanced weapons. Each of them was equipped with enough equipment to shoot at 30 enemies for 30 minutes. Ayer took the photos and glanced at them, revealing his white teeth. I'll try my best, but I can't guarantee anything. There would always be some employer who would make a request before the war. However, Ayer would ignore most of the requests. Their mission was not to save people, but to kill. They were enemies. Before he could ensure that they put down their weapons, he would not agree to Jane Fankel's request. The mercenaries easily tore through the Marx family's defensive line. The people inside the Marks family could not even communicate with the outside world by phone. The mercenaries had already turned the place into a restricted area with interference devices. Jan Fankel looked at the once familiar home, which was now engulfed in the flames of war. She did not plan to kill her father and brother. She just wanted them to not be a hindrance. However, given her father and brother's way of doing things, they would never allow her to leave the family's control. That was why Jan Fankel chose to make the first move. Before the two of them could even react, he had uprooted them and the Marks family. Jan Fankel was from the Marks family. That was why she knew the Marks family better than anyone else. Meanwhile, in the Marks family, Caesar and old Marks were standing in front of a window on the third floor. Both of them looked at the chaos below expressionlessly. They watched as their family's gunmen retreated step by step. Neither of them was worried or afraid. Caesar glanced at his father and said, "It seems that Jan Fankel does not know her family well enough. This is a chance for her to understand that compared to the entire family, her achievements are nothing at all," Yizichin said with a smile. At this time, a voice came from behind them. "I can give her a chance, but that depends on her performance." Chapter 26:10. How's the situation inside? Jan Fankel asked. "It's going well. Although we encountered quite a bit of resistance," Iyer said disapprovingly. Although they were facing a well-known mafia family, their combat power was not on the same level. The difference in equipment was not something that could be made up for with numbers. Especially the difference in equipment. It was not something that could be made up for with numbers. In this battle, no tactics could make up for the difference in equipment between the two sides. One side was still using pistols while the other side was equipped with automatic machine guns. There were also several heavy machine guns mounted on the off-road vehicles. They followed their team members into the manor. This was no longer a battle. It was a one-sided massacre. Jan Fankel's heart was heavy. Leading an army to massacre her own family. If it was anyone else, they wouldn't feel happy about it. She hoped that her father could see the situation clearly. He could surrender quickly. That way, she could reduce the number of deaths she caused. However, so many of her family members had already been killed. He did not seem to want to surrender. Since when did her father become so unyielding? Or could it be that she had misjudged him? "It shouldn't take long before you can go in," Iyer said. I hope so," Jan Fankel said, trying her best to calm herself down. At that moment, the mafia gunmen outside the manor had been completely cleared out. The gunshots inside the manor also died down after a few grenades exploded. Guild leader, the enemies inside the manor have basically been cleared out. Through thermal imaging, there are still 3 people inside the manor. They are all under our control. Should we execute them on the spot? Before Iyer could speak, Jan Fankel hurriedly shouted, No need. My employer and I will go in now. You just need to be on guard." Iyer looked at Jan Fankel. "Let's go, Madame Fankel." With a heavy heart, Jan Fankel returned to the home she had grown up in. Iyer smiled. He had seen too many employers like her who were filled with worries. Jan Fankel was not the first, and she would not be the last. Because of some ridiculous reason, she had broken up with her family. Then, she would find them and use violence to convince them. When Jan Fankel entered the manor, she could not help but regret her decision. She looked at the corpses all over the place. She even knew the names of some of them. Now, however, she had buried them with her own hands. They might not be related by blood. But they became a family because of the same surname. Jan Fankel's feelings were getting more complicated. Some of the corpses could no longer be seen clearly. Every scene here was filled with memories for Jane Funkel. At this moment, the mercenary standing at the door cleverly ran to Ire. "Leader, there seems to be a problem." "What's wrong?" "The people I sent into the villa have all disappeared." "Disappeared? What does that mean?" "They've all disappeared from the thermal imaging equipment, and there's no response from their walkie-talkies." "Is it signal interference?" "And there's even a temperature disturbance?" Ire asked with a frown. He had encountered a similar situation on the battlefield before. By lowering the temperature of the environment, the enemy was affecting the thermal imaging equipment. Lowering the ambient temperature seemed complicated. In fact, it wasn't that difficult to do. Especially in the interior of the building, as long as a portion of the ice was placed, the ambient temperature could be easily lowered to a point where even thermal imaging instruments could not detect it. "Where are the enemies?" "There are 3 people in the villa. Their thermal imaging is very clear, and they have been in the last room on the 3rd floor. They haven't moved at all." "Gather our men and follow me in," Ire said with a sour expression. He had thought it would be a simple mission. However, the reality had exceeded his expectations. "What about outside?" "There are no more enemies outside, so we don't need to station our men outside. Let's go in and see what kind of monsters are inside." "I want to go with you." Jane Fankel looked at Ire with a serious expression. "Miss Fankel, I don't have time to protect you." "I don't need your protection." Jane Fankel was worried that the mercenaries had gone berserk. She might not care about the others, but she would not allow her father and brother to be harmed. "Fine, but you better not get in the way of the battle." Soon, Ire's men were gathered. The villa was huge, and a single living room could fit a dozen mercenaries. The group carefully entered the villa. When they reached the living room, it was empty. There was nothing, not even a body. "Something isn't right," Ire said with a frown. A few mercenaries in charge of scouting ahead gestured to Ire. "The 2nd floor is safe. We can go up." The mercenaries went up to the 2nd floor one after another. Jane Fankel walked in the middle. That way, if anything happened, she would be the first to be protected. However, when they reached the 2nd floor and were about to go up to the 3rd floor, they saw a door in front of them. Jane Fankel frowned at the strange door. The door was engraved with obscure and complicated patterns. The main part of the pattern was a giant dragon, spreading 3 waves of fear and despair to the world. Below the dragon were people kneeling on the ground, shivering. "Why is there a door like this here?" Jane Fankel was confused. There shouldn't be a door like this in a place like this. It wasn't some kind of art piece. Even if it was, it should be in her father's study or collection room. Ire signaled his men and forced their way in. One of the mercenaries went up and kicked the door. With a bang, the strange door was kicked open. Then, a cloud of smoke spread out from the door. "Careful, it might be poisonous gas," Ire said, covering his nose. However, after a while, the mercenaries realized the smoke wasn't poisonous at all. At least, they didn't feel anything unusual. "Let's go up and have a look. Stay alert." Al sensed that the villa was filled with a strange and indescribable pressure. He didn't like this place. If he had a choice, he would rather be on the battlefield than in this depressing villa. The mercenaries went through the door one after another. Jane Fankel hesitated for a while, but she still followed them. For some reason, there was a voice in her head that seemed to be stopping her from going through the door. Chapter 26:11. The moment Jane Fankel stepped through the door, she heard a deafening roar. Gunshots and explosions rang out one after another. Jane Fankel waved away the mist in front of her. She was so frightened that her body froze on the spot. Jen Fankel was frightened by the strange dragon with half of its body emerging from the mist. This was not home, but an unknown land shrouded in fog. Although only half of the dragon's body was exposed, it was already nearly 10 meters long and had powerful claws. Ire and his mercenaries were currently engaged in a fierce battle with the strange dragon. However, be it guns or grenades, none of them could hurt the strange dragon. Every time the strange dragon waved its claws or spat out its dragon breath, it could kill a few mercenaries. Fankel. Explain to me, what is this? What is this? Jane Fankel couldn't care less about Al's questions. She stood there in a daze, unable to move her eyes. The scene in front of her, the creature in front of her, was completely beyond her understanding, beyond her worldview. What exactly is this? At that moment, a mercenary's entire body was bitten by the strange dragon. The mercenary let out a strange cry. At the same time, he pulled out his dagger and stabbed it into the strange dragon's neck and jaw. The strange dragon's skin was pierced, and in pain, it spat out a mouthful of acid. The mercenary was instantly dissolved. Air's expression changed. That monster seems to be able to be injured by cold weapons. Everyone had no choice but to drop the firearms in their hands. Instead, he pulled out his saber. Kill. At this moment, no one chose to retreat. It wasn't that they could ignore life and death. It was because they knew that they had no way out. If they retreated now, they would only die faster. They were the elite of the mercenaries. Elites did not necessarily represent their individual combat strength. It was because they knew when to make the right choice. Everyone threw themselves at the strange dragon without a care for their own safety. The strange dragon could melt a person with its acid breath. However, the other mercenaries had already pounced on the strange dragon. Everyone used all their strength to stab or scratch the neck of the strange dragon with their daggers. They were not warriors who faced death with equanimity. But at this moment, they could be called warriors. The strange dragon's neck was riddled with holes. However, its vitality was still as tenacious as ever. Al suddenly pounced forward, his saber raised high above his head. A 1-meter-long wound appeared on the strange dragon's neck. Fresh blood splashed all over Air, and the strange dragon finally collapsed. At this moment, there were only a few people left in Ayer's group. Everyone was injured, and exhaustion was written all over their faces. They had never experienced a battle like this. It was a terrifying and strange battle. However, before everyone could heave a sigh of relief. However, countless strange dragon heads emerged from the fog. Everyone looked at the scene before them in despair. Some mercenaries even knelt on the ground and cried bitterly. At this moment, 3 figures gradually appeared in the fog. Jane Fankel's pupils shrank. 2 of the 3 people who appeared were her father, Old Max, and her brother, Caesar. The other person stood on the left side of Old Max, but he had a malicious smile on his face. The strange dragons did not attack the 3 of them. Fankel, I bet you didn't expect us to meet like this, Old Max said with a smile. Caesar licked his lips and looked at Jane Fankel vaguely. His gaze made Jane Fankel very uncomfortable. See? This is the power of the capital you were so proud of. Old Max pointed at the despairing mercenaries. Before our family's power, your power is so insignificant, so laughable. This is not our family's power. Countless thoughts popped up in Jane Fankel's mind. This was not what she understood. How could her family have such power? You can only blame your ignorance. We are supposed to be the kings of darkness. Now is the time to regain our family's glory. With these monsters, you will only bring your family to the grave with you, Jane Fankel said with a cold smile. She calmed down instead. even though her heart was already panicking. "Father, since she has betrayed her family and bloodline, let her blood be a part of mine," Caesar said coldly. Old Max did not care about his son's request. He continued to look at Jane Fankel. "Fankel, my daughter, I forgive you for your disobedience. Come back to my arms." Old Max opened his arms, as if welcoming Jane Fankel's arrival. Jane Fankel did not move. She felt that there was something about Old Max that made her feel uneasy. Also, Old Max's pupils were different from what she remembered. They were vertical pupils that she could not understand. "Fankel, you have failed to live up to your father's expectations." Caesar looked at Jane Fankel with an even colder gaze. There was even a hint of joy in his eyes. Old Max rubbed his nose and said helplessly, "Seems like Fankel has chosen a different path." "Forget it, if you don't want to accept your family, then so be it." Caesar could not help but grin as he walked towards Jane Fankel step by step. Suddenly, a figure appeared in front of Jane Fankel. Ayer was holding a submachine gun and fired at Caesar. Ah! Caesar was shot in all directions, but the bullets did not penetrate his skin. Jane Fankel looked at Caesar in disbelief. How was this possible? How could her brother ignore the attack of firearms? "I will kill you all," Caesar roared. Half of his face was covered in scales. At that moment, a glass bottle was thrown into the mist and landed in front of Caesar. "This." Caesar lowered his head and looked at the glass bottle. "Damn it. Get away, you idiot." Old Max shouted anxiously. In the next instant, the glass bottle suddenly exploded, bursting with a dazzling white light. Jane Fankel and Ayer were also blinded by the dazzling white light. Suddenly, Jane Fankel and Ayer felt something grab the back of their necks and forcefully drag them into the mist. In the next instant, their vision turned black. It was as if they had traveled through a different world. They had returned to the other side of the door. A tall and slender woman was standing in front of them. The woman was holding a chain with both hands. The two ends of the chain were connected to hooks. It seemed like it was this pair of hooked claws that had dragged them out of the fog. "Don't ask anything. If you don't want to die, we better leave this place first." Divine Emperor of the Nine Heavens. Chapter 26:12. After saying that, the woman turned around and walked away. Jane Fankel and Ariel hurried to catch up with the woman. They dared not ask any more questions. In short, everything that had happened just now. Even the woman before them had shown signs of abnormality. She ran a few kilometers away from the manor. Only then did the woman stop. Jane Fankel was so tired that she could not even stand up straight. She dared not stop during the whole process. Ariel was still full of energy. At the same time, he kept his guard up against the mysterious woman. They did not meet any obstacles along the way. It made him suspect the woman's identity even more. "Is this enough?" Jane Fankel asked worriedly. "No." The woman turned around and looked at Jane Fankel. Suddenly, Jane Fankel saw the woman's pupils. She was so scared that she took a few steps back and fell on her butt. Ariel's scalp went numb. He saw it too. He saw that the woman's pupils were the same as old Max's, inhuman pupils. Ariel pulled out his knife and pointed it at the mysterious woman. "Are you one of them?" The mysterious woman curled her lips. "One of them? Aren't you two the same?" "Us? We have nothing to do with those things." Even Jane Fankel could not convince herself of this. After all, two of her closest relatives had turned into those things. She was not sure whether she would turn into those things or not. Before this, she had no idea about it at all. Maybe she is, but I am not. I have nothing to do with her or her family. Ariel hated Jane Fankel very much. Even if he knew, Jane Fankel might be a victim. Still, he could not help but hate Jane Fankel. Hee. You received the dragon blood baptism and are still unscathed. You are telling me you are not a dragon descendant. What dragon blood baptism? What dragon descendant? I don't understand what you are talking about. If a normal person comes in contact with dragon blood, it will be like taking a bath in acid. If a drop of dragon blood is eaten by mistake, it will be like taking the deadliest poison. But you have not shown any abnormalities until now. It means that not only do you have dragon blood, but you have also awakened it. What are you talking about? I don't even know what you are talking about. Don't be in a hurry to deny it. Do you have greater endurance and stamina than ordinary people? I'm a mercenary. I've received the most professional training, so it's not strange that my endurance and stamina are better than ordinary people. When Iyer said that, he actually felt a little guilty. Because he knew his own situation. His endurance, stamina, and even his body were more like Data. Not only were they slightly stronger than ordinary people, but they were much, much stronger. However, Iyer had always kept this secret in his heart and never revealed it to anyone. Some people's dragon bloodline awakening will have a very strong reaction, and the stronger the reaction, the purer the dragon bloodline is. Some dragon descendants' awakening is recessive, and the symptoms are not strong. Your physique is only slightly stronger than ordinary people, so you should belong to the recessive awakening of dragon descendants. Hee. Are you trying to tell me that I'm actually related to her? There are far more dragon descendants in this world than you can imagine, but that doesn't mean you are related, the mysterious woman said calmly. I want to know what happened here. What happened to my father and my big brother? Jane Fankel looked at the mysterious woman anxiously. It's complicated, and it's not something you can get involved in, so it's better if you don't know too much. But now that we are involved, do you think we can get out of this? Iyer said calmly. He didn't dare to completely agree with the mysterious woman, but he felt that her words had some credibility. Do you remember that there was a third man other than you two, old Max and Caesar? He's like us. He's like us, but he's also different from us. What do you mean? He's a real dragon, the shadow dragon, Haber Haber, and he's the cause of all this. The mysterious woman looked at Jane Fankel and smiled. And he's your grandfather's grandfather. How is that possible? He looks old enough to be my son. That's the truth. How do you know? The mysterious woman laughed. According to seniority, I should be your grandmother. You? Is it strange? Dragons have long lives. Although their descendants can't live for thousands of years like the dragons, they still live longer than ordinary people. I'm 99 years old now. That's impossible. You look, Jane Fankel had wanted to say, you look like my daughter. However, she swallowed the words. Jane Fankel was still suspicious. She even suspected that this was some kind of parody show. The mysterious woman saw that Jane Fankel was still suspicious of her, so she continued, actually, I'm your grandfather's sister, so it's fine if you call me Grandma. Of course, I'd prefer you to call me by my name, Varian Max. I'm not interested in your relationship. I just want to know what the fuck is going on, Iyer said impatiently. I don't know what's going on either. My teammates and I are only responsible for hunting him down, Haber Haber. Hunting him down. Didn't you say he's your grandfather? So what? Since you're hunting him down, where are your teammates? They're where they should be. When are you going to act? That's a real dragon. You can think of it as the scariest creature in the world. Do you think you can kill him as you please? What else? Are you going to get a nuclear weapon and blow him up? If you can, I don't mind, Varianki said. If you can, do you think I need you? Ire said mockingly. For a moment, the three of them fell silent. Varianki sat down and rested. At the same time, she took out a few compressed biscuits and gave them to Ire and Jane Fankel. Ire, who had just finished a biscuit, suddenly stood up. No, I can't stay here. It's too dangerous. Varianki glanced at Ire. You think you can leave? What do you mean? Is there something waiting for us outside? Not on the outskirts, but around us. You're tuning into the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.